The tear did not open with light. It opened with absence, a wrong-shaped hole where reality forgot its own rules. One moment, Krillin was on the lookout, feet skimming stone, breath steady, palms stinging from trading strikes with Goku that would have folded mountains. The next moment, he felt the world catch on something sharp and rip. There was no sky, no ground, no up. There was only motion and color that tasted like metal and old thunder. His stomach clenched as if gravity had turned predatory. His skin prickled. Ki tried to steady him, to find a familiar axis, but the space around him was a shattered mirror. Every fragment reflected a different outcome. In one, he saw Goku's startled face. In another, Android 18 turning too late. In another, nothing but black. He tried to breathe. The air was wrong. It carried no warmth, no living rhythm, only an electric bitterness that made his throat tighten. A smell of ozone and something like burnt plastic filled his nose. He pushed Ki outward, searching for the steady signatures that always framed his world. Goku's roaring strength, Piccolo's calm blade of will, Dende's glental glow. Nothing answered. He twisted in the fall, tucking his shoulders the way Roshi drilled into him as a boy, the way survival drilled into him later. The kaleidoscope narrowed, the broken colors became a tunnel, then a pinprick, then a violent, sudden arrival. He hit pavement like a meteor wearing a human body. Asphalt cracked beneath him with a sound that did not belong to any temple or mountain pass. It was a cheap, ugly sound, brittle and mean. The shock traveled into his bones, but his bones held. He felt the street buckle, felt the impact translate into a crater that spread in spiderweb fractures. Dust and grit rose around him. The air filled with the stink of exhaust, hot rubber and old rain cooked into the ground. Krillin lay still for half a heartbeat, not from pain, but from orientation. His ears rang. Somewhere nearby, glass shattered in a bright cascade. Then the world's noise rushed in all at once. Screams, car horns, alarms, the rapid slap of shoes against pavement as people ran without a plan. He pushed himself up. His orange G was dusted gray. He brushed at it out of habit, then stopped when he noticed the faces. They were not the faces of people who had seen Saiyans tear the sky open or heard their planet's atmosphere scream under the weight of gods. These were office workers in clean coats and tight suits, wide-eyed and pale, mouths open as if language had failed them. Some were pointing, some were filming. Some had fallen to the ground and were scrambling back like he was a wild animal that might pounce. Krillin rose slowly, palms open, showing he meant no harm. He scanned the skyline. The buildings were wrong. Not wrong like alien ruins or Namek's swollen horizon. Wrong like a different kind of arrogance. Towers of glass and steel, sharp and perfect, thrust into low clouds like someone had tried to stab the sky and left the knife there. Light reflected off them in cold sheets. Streets cut through them in straight lines designed for speed and money, not for people. He tried again. He reached for key signatures, for any sign of the familiar Earth he knew, any hint of Kami's quiet presence, King Kai's distant grin, the subtle pressure of beings who lived half a step above normal life. Nothing. He felt humans, millions of them, but their power levels were dull, thin, untrained. The city hummed with electricity and engines and crowded breath, but it lacked the spiritual texture he expected. It was like stepping into a room where someone had removed all the air and replaced it with sound. Great, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Goku is going to kill me if I'm late for dinner again. He lifted, just a few feet, testing. Flight always felt like slipping out of the world's hand. Here it felt like violating a law. His body rose and the crowd's panic sharpened into something jagged. Every phone within range swung toward him. Lenses glittered like insect eyes. A man in a tie stumbled backward and dropped his coffee. It splashed across the sidewalk like a stain. Krillin eased down to street level again. No need to provoke. He could find someone, ask questions, get to a quiet place, call Bulma. Bulma could solve almost anything with the right amount of irritation. Then he heard the siren. It cut through the city like a blade. More joined it, harmonizing into a rising, frantic wail. The crowd parted as vehicles forced their way through. Black and white cars, lights strobing. Doors opened. Men and women in dark uniforms stepped out fast. Guns appeared. Not one or two, a line of them, raised, steadying, aimed directly at him. Krillin's first instinct was to laugh, a quick, nervous sound that didn't quite make it out. Guns, here, pointed at him? It was so small and so serious at the same time that it felt unreal. Hands up, on the ground, now. Krillin lifted his hands higher, palms forward. He let his face soften into something calm. He had stood in front of tyrants who could erase worlds. He could handle frightened humans with weapons that could not scratch him. What mattered was not what they could do to him. What mattered was what he might do to them if he moved too fast and scared them into a mistake. "Officers," he said, voice carrying easily, "there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not from—" "Shut up," another barked, voice raw. "Down." He lowered himself, slow as a man setting down a bomb. Knees first, then hands, then his cheek against the asphalt. The street smelled like old oil and damp grit. He could feel the vibrations of the city through his skin. Someone moved closer. He heard leather creak. He heard a breath hitch, like the officer's body didn't believe it was walking towards something that could make a crater by landing. Plastic cuffs snapped around his wrists. They bit into his skin with pointless insistence. Krillin kept still. Across the street, an electronic billboard flickered. Bright colors punched through the gray air. 7 figures posed like statues, capes in perfect jawlines, bodies arranged for worship. Beneath them, text scrolled in bold letters. The 7, America's premier superhero team. A corporate logo followed, crisp and white against the city's muted palette. Vought International. Krillin stared at it from the ground. Something tightened in his chest. It wasn't fear. It was a recognition of a wrongness he didn't yet have words for. The pose was heroic, but it was too clean. The smiles were too practiced. The tagline felt like an advertisement, not a vow. He had known heroism as bruised knuckles and late nights, as friends bleeding for strangers they would never meet. He had known it as sacrifice without cameras. The billboard's shine felt like rot covered in perfume. A shout snapped him back. Boots stomped closer. Someone yanked his arms upward, forcing him to stand. The cuffs held his wrists behind him, turning him into a shape of compliance. "Move," a voice said, too loud. The gun remained pointed at his head from 3 feet away. Krillin walked. The crowd parted. People watched with hungry fear. Their phones tracked him like he was prey. A woman cried and covered her child's eyes. A man filmed with both hands shaking, whispering to himself like he was praying. Krillin looked at the billboard again as they guided him toward the police car. 7 costumed figures, a corporation's name. He felt the city's hum, the human lives layered in all directions. And under it, faint, high above, he sensed something else for the first time. A few signatures, stronger than normal humans, moving through the sky with unnatural ease. Not key, not disciplined, something manufactured, a hollow pressure, like a sickness pretending to be power. He swallowed. He had fallen into a world where strength was real but wrong, where heroes were a brand, where fear moved faster than truth. As the car door opened and they pushed him inside, Krillin realized the most unsettling part wasn't the guns, it was the way everyone looked at him. Not as a person, as an event. The back seat of the police car smelled like disinfectant and old sweat. Plexiglass separated him from the front, a clear barrier meant to make people feel safe by pretending it could stop anything. Krillin sat with his hands cuffed behind him, shoulders relaxed, breathing measured. He listened. The radio crackled with overlapping voices, codes, locations, words like unknown hostile and possible terrorist and stay back snapped through the static. The driver kept glancing at the rearview mirror as if he expected Krillin to explode. Krillin kept his gaze low and calm. He let his body language say what his mouth could not right now. He was not a threat. Outside, Manhattan moved like a machine that had lost one gear. Traffic snarled, people crowded sidewalks, more phones rose. The moment had already become content. He watched a teenager press his face to the glass of a bodega window to film. He watched a courier on a bicycle slow to stare, nearly colliding with a taxi. He watched a man in a suit run beside the car for a few steps, shouting into his phone, breathless with excitement. He had fought in tournaments where crowds screamed for blood, but those crowds watched combat. This crowd watched uncertainty. Their fear carried a sharp edge, and their fascination carried hunger. The car stopped at a light, and the sound hit him again. Sirens layered over each other, then grew quieter as they turned away. Helicopter blades thumped somewhere above the buildings, steady as a heartbeat. He felt the vibration through the roof of the car. A helicopter circled. A news one, he realized a second later, because the camera under its belly tracked the car with slow patience. It followed like a predator that already owned the story. The officer in the passenger seat spoke into the radio. Transporting suspect to one police plaza. Advise, suspect appears calm. Repeat, suspect appears calm. The phrase sounded like a warning. Krillin shifted slightly to sit more comfortably. The cuffs clinked. The driver flinched so hard the car swerved an inch. "Sorry," Krillin said softly. Neither officer answered. They moved again. Buildings rose and fell in the windows, each one a hard-faced monument to money. Krillin tried to map the city in his head. He had traveled Earth in minutes before, flown over continents under moonlight, felt forests breathe from the sky. This city felt like it had been built to block the horizon. He tried to sense beyond it. He pushed key outward, gentle, searching. He found the ordinary lives first, the diner cook with tired shoulders, the woman who held her child's hand too tight, the old man with a heart that skipped. The city carried millions of tiny stories, fragile and bright. He could protect them as something threatened them. That part stayed simple. Then he touched the other signatures again, the artificial ones. They moved high above, fast. Their energy sat wrong inside their bodies like a chemical burn turned into muscle. One streaked across the sky so fast it left a brief pressure wave that made nearby windows tremble. Krillin's jaw tightened. He remembered Goku's speed, Vegeta's, the controlled fury of warriors shaped by training. This felt like power with no center. He could not imagine it staying contained forever. The police car turned and pulled into a secured entrance. A gate opened. Concrete walls boxed the space. The city's noise dulled to an echo. The car stopped. Doors opened. Air rushed in, cold and damp. Hands grabbed him. He stood without resistance. An officer guided him forward as if steering a dangerous animal. Two more watched with weapons at the ready. Inside, fluorescent lights washed everything in pale glare. Hallways smelled like paper, stale coffee, and tension. People stared. Some looked frightened. Some looked thrilled. A few looked annoyed, as if Krillin's existence had disrupted their shift. Someone took his picture. A flash popped. He blinked. "Name," a voice demanded. "Krillin," he said. A pause. A skeptical snort. "Full name." "It's just Krillin." The desk sergeant's pen stopped. "That's a joke." "It isn't." "Nationality." "I'm from Earth." The sergeant looked up, irritated. "No kidding." Krillin tried again. "I'm from a different version of Earth, another dimension. I didn't choose to come here. Something pulled me." A couple officers laughed. Not humor, relief. The kind people use to tell themselves that danger is manageable. "Great," the sergeant said. "We got a lunatic." Krillin opened his mouth, then closed it. He could explain forever, and this room would still hear whatever story made them feel safest. He had fought enemies who lied with power. These people lied with certainty. They led him into a processing area. A camera on the wall stared at him with dead patience. A second one watched from the corner.
A third sat in a dome on the ceiling, a place built to record human misbehavior, a place built to reduce people into files. An officer tried to take his fingerprints. He held still as the man pressed each finger into ink, then onto a scanner. The scanner beeped and flashed red. "Try again," the officer muttered. He tried again. Red. A supervisor stepped in. "What's the issue?" "No match, no record." The supervisor frowned and looked at Krillin like he had cheated. "Everyone has a record." Krillin said nothing. They moved to a metal detector. He walked through. It screamed. Another officer waved a handheld scanner over him. It screeched again. "What the hell?" the officer whispered. Krillin glanced at the device. "I don't have weapons." "You're the weapon," someone said under their breath. A nurse arrived with a kit. She wore gloves, moved with brisk confidence that cracked when she looked at him close up. She drew blood. The needle bent slightly against his skin, then slid in after she adjusted the angle. Her eyes widened. She pretended it was normal. They scanned him with something like an X-ray. He stood inside a machine while a tech watched a monitor. The tech's face changed as the results came in. His mouth opened and closed. He stepped back from the screen like it might bite him. "Bone density is... that can't be right." "How bad?" the supervisor asked. "Not bad," the tech said. "Impossible." Krillin listened to the word and felt a cold emptiness settle in. In his world, impossible meant a challenge. Here, it meant a threat. They brought him to a holding room, concrete walls, a bolted bench, a camera behind thick glass, another behind the mirror. He sat down slowly, keeping his movements small. A younger officer hovered near the door, uncertain. He stared at Krillin's shaved head, the dots on his forehead, the orange gi. His eyes flicked to the cuffs, then to the bench, then to Krillin's face. "You really..." he began, then stopped. Krillin looked at him. "What?" The officer swallowed. "You really fell out of the sky." "Yes." "Are you..." The officer hesitated, then committed. "One of those... soups?" Krillin held the word in his head. Soups. He heard it like a slur and a brand at the same time. "I'm a martial artist," he said. "I trained. I'm not enhanced by drugs or science." The officer's eyes narrowed. "So you're saying you did this yourself?" Krillin nodded. The officer's expression twisted into something Krillin could not name. Fear, yes, but also resentment, like the officer needed Krillin to be a product, because the idea of a person earning power didn't fit the world's rules. The officer left without answering. The door shut, the lock clicked. Krillin sat in the humming stillness and listened to the building's pulse. He heard distant phones ring. He heard footsteps. He heard the murmur of officers swapping theories in the hall. He focused and listened harder, past the walls, past the precinct. The city outside roared with news. He could feel it in the way human attention clustered toward him like heat. He could sense the cameras pointed at the building now. He could sense helicopters hovering. He could sense the first ripples of panic spreading outward, mutating into rumor. He pictured the billboard again, the 7, Vought. A world where heroes had a marketing department. A world where power had owners. Krillin closed his eyes and tried to steady his breathing. He told himself this was temporary. He would find a way to call Bulma. He would find a way back. He would not let this world's fear pull him into violence. Then a distant cheer rose outside the precinct, and a second later his senses caught the reason. A strong signature passed overhead, moving slow enough to be seen. It carried the same hollow, artificial pressure as before. The crowd outside reacted like worshippers.
The cheer outside did not sound like relief. It sounded like hunger satisfied. Krillin sat upright on the bolted bench and listened. The crowd noise pressed in through concrete and glass, muffled but unmistakable. It rose in waves, call and response chants, the rhythm of a rally. He heard a name repeated with the same cadence people used for prayer. Homelander. He had never heard humans chant a protector's name like that on his Earth. They thanked, they hugged, they cried. They moved on. Worship belonged to temples and fools. Out there, worship had found a costume. Footsteps approached. The door opened. 2 officers entered, both carrying a cautious energy like men approaching an animal they had no training for. One held a paper cup of water. "Drink," the officer said. Krillin accepted the cup. The water tasted like chlorine in old pipes. He drank anyway. The other officer stood by the wall, arms crossed, eyes flicking between Krillin's face and the camera in the corner. "You know who that is outside," he said. Krillin set the cup down. "Someone powerful." "Not just powerful," the officer said, voice tight. "He's Homelander." Krillin waited. He had learned that people in uniforms often talked to fill their fear. "He's," the officer searched for the right word, "the best, the top, the real deal, the Seven's leader." "The Seven," Krillin repeated, testing the phrase. The officer's eyes sharpened with something like pride. "You don't know about the Seven." Krillin shook his head. "I'm not from here." The officer laughed once, a dry sound. "Yeah, we heard." He stepped closer, then stopped at an invisible line his body refused to cross. "The Seven are America's premier superhero team. Vought runs them. They keep the country safe. They do the big stuff. Terror threats, disasters, that sort of thing. Homelander's the strongest man alive." Krillin's mouth tightened. "Strongest." The officer bristled at the tone. "You think that's funny?" "No, I think it's dangerous to say a man is the strongest alive like it's a comfort." The officer's expression shifted. The pride tried to hold, then cracked under something older. "It is a comfort," he insisted, but the words lacked conviction. "It means someone's watching." Krillin looked at the camera in the corner, red light blinking. Watching. "What's Vought?" he asked. The first officer, the one who brought the water, answered quietly. "Company. They handle heroes, licensing, media, everything." "Everything," Krillin repeated. The second officer's phone buzzed. He glanced down and his face tightened again. "Jesus," he muttered. "What?" Krillin asked. The officer hesitated, then held the phone out as if showing proof. A trending page, a clip. Krillin's own impact crater, filmed from 3 angles, cut into a 30-second montage with captions and dramatic music. The video ended on his face and the words, "Crater Man? New soup? Vault cover-up?" Millions of views. Krillin stared at it, then at the officer. "That was fast." "That's the world," the officer said, and for a moment his voice held a bitterness that did not belong to a man in love with heroes. "Everything's fast." He pulled the phone back and scrolled. Another clip, a billboard shot. The Seven posed with the corporate logo. Another clip, a woman crying while holding a Homelander plush toy. Another clip, a panel of talking heads debating whether Krillin was a foreign super soldier. Krillin's throat felt dry. "Why are people calling me a soup?" "Because that's what your world calls anyone strong enough to make you afraid." The officer's jaw tightened. He did not like that. He did not like the implication that his comfort was built on language, not truth. "Look," the first officer said, cutting in, quieter, almost apologetic. "We're just doing procedure. Higher-ups will decide what happens. Vought might send someone. They have people for this." "For what?" Krillin asked. "For things that don't fit." The officers left. The door closed. The lock clicked. The room returned to its humming stillness, but the outside noise kept pushing through, louder now. The crowd had grown. They were not here to see justice. They were here to see spectacle. Minutes later, a TV mounted high in the corner of the holding corridor flickered on. Someone had turned it up, maybe to hear what the city was saying, maybe to feel less alone. The sound carried into Krillin's cell. A bright studio, a smiling anchor with perfect hair, a banner, breaking, Crater Man captured, Vought responds. The anchor spoke with smooth urgency. "Authorities have detained the individual responsible for today's incident in the financial district. Sources tell VNN that Vought International has been alerted and is currently assessing whether this is a foreign threat, a rogue soup, or a previously unknown Vought asset operating off-grid." Vought asset.
Krillin heard the phrase and felt something cold settle deeper in his stomach. The anchor moved on, cutting to footage of his crater, then to the billboard with the 7. The camera lingered on their faces. Homelander front and center, smile wide, eyes bright, cape clean. Around him, the others posed like weapons packaged for sale. Krillin caught names as the anchor spoke them like products. Queen Maeve, The Deep, A-Train, Black Noir, Starlight. Each one came with a short clip, a hero moment, edited sharp and clean. A-Train smiling beside an energy drink, The Deep posing by an aquarium, Starlight waving at children while cameras loved her. Homelander lifting a car with one hand, the crowd screaming like he had performed a miracle. Krillin watched, and the more he watched, the more it felt wrong. Not because they were powerful. Power existed everywhere. It was the emptiness behind the images, the way the clips focused on branding, not on people, the way the victims blurred into background props, the way every act looked staged, framed, polished. He had sensed artificial strength in the sky. Now he saw artificial heroism on the screen. The anchor's tone shifted. Now, while we await Vought's official statement, social media is already speculating. Is Craterman connected to the recent international incidents? Some online users are calling him an alien. Others insist this is a new Vought initiative operating off-grid. Vought asset. Krillin heard the phrase and felt something cold settle deeper in his stomach. The anchor moved on, cutting to footage of his crater, then to the billboard with the 7. The camera lingered on their faces. Homelander front and center, smile wide, eyes bright, cape clean. Around him, the others posed like weapons packaged for sale. Krillin caught names as the anchor spoke them like products. Queen Maeve, The Deep, A-Train, Black Noir, Starlight. Each one came with a short clip, a hero moment, edited sharp and clean. A-Train smiling beside an energy drink, The Deep posing by an aquarium, Starlight waving at children while cameras loved her. Homelander lifting a car with one hand, the crowd screaming like he had performed a miracle. Krillin watched, and the more he watched, the more it felt wrong. Not because they were powerful. Power existed everywhere. It was the emptiness behind the images, the way the clips focused on branding, not on people, the way the victims blurred into background props, the way every act looked staged, framed, polished. He had sensed artificial strength in the sky. Now he saw artificial heroism on the screen. The anchor's tone shifted. Now, while we await Vought's official statement, social media is already speculating. Is Craterman connected to the recent international incidents? Some online users are calling him an alien. Others insist this is a new Vought initiative operating off-grid. Vought asset. Krillin heard the phrase and felt something cold settle deeper in his stomach. The anchor moved on, cutting to footage of his crater, then to the billboard with the 7. The camera lingered on their faces. Homelander front and center, smile wide, eyes bright, cape clean. Around him, the others posed like weapons packaged for sale. Krillin caught names as the anchor spoke them like products. Queen Maeve, The Deep, A-Train, Black Noir, Starlight. Each one came with a short clip, a hero moment, edited sharp and clean. A-Train smiling beside an energy drink, The Deep posing by an aquarium, Starlight waving at children while cameras loved her. Homelander lifting a car with one hand, the crowd screaming like he had performed a miracle. Krillin watched, and the more he watched, the more it felt wrong. Not because they were powerful. Power existed everywhere. It was the emptiness behind the images, the way the clips focused on branding, not on people, the way the victims blurred into background props, the way every act looked staged, framed, polished. He had sensed artificial strength in the sky. Now he saw artificial heroism on the screen. The anchor's tone shifted. Now, while we await Vought's official statement, social media is already speculating. Is Craterman connected to the recent international incidents? Some online users are calling him an alien. Others insist this is a new Vought initiative operating off-grid. Vought asset. Krillin heard the phrase and felt something cold settle deeper in his stomach. The anchor moved on, cutting to footage of his crater, then to the billboard with the 7. The camera lingered on their faces. Homelander front and center, smile wide, eyes bright, cape clean. Around him, the others posed like weapons packaged for sale. Krillin caught names as the anchor spoke them like products. Queen Maeve, The Deep, A-Train, Black Noir, Starlight. Each one came with a short clip, a hero moment, edited sharp and clean. A-Train smiling beside an vent.
Homelander's gaze held on the precinct for a second too long. The crowd below kept cheering, unaware that the expression on their god's face had shifted from performance to calculation. Then he smiled again, waved, and drifted upward as if he had simply come to reassure them that the world remained under control. Inside the cell, Krillin felt the tension in the building sharpen. The officers down the hall spoke in low, clipped phrases. Radios crackled. Someone said the word Vought like a prayer and a threat. Krillin sat still, shoulders loose, but his senses stayed wide. He could feel the artificial signature recede, but he could not shake the sense that something larger had already begun moving around him. Not fighters, not key, systems. 80 floors above the city, in a tower of glass that reflected the morning like a blade, Vought International did not cheer, it measured. The incident had hit their surveillance grid before Krillin's crater finished smoking. A thermal spike, a localized seismic read, a flash of energy that did not match any known soup profile, any known military test, any known natural event. Their satellite feed stitched the breach into a clean sequence. Air tearing, light collapsing inward, then a bald man in orange slamming into Manhattan hard enough to crack asphalt like ceramic. Anomaly detected. The phrase did not carry fear in Vought's systems. It carried urgency. In a room built for calm panic, screens lined the walls in grids. Manhattan from above, the precinct exterior live, traffic flow simulation, social sentiment analysis, keyword clustering, a rolling chart of Vought's stock price, already jittering like a heartbeat under stress. Ashley Barrett stood at the center of it all, a slim tablet clutched in one hand. Her other hand hovered near her hair, fingers twitching as if searching for something to pull. She wore an expensive suit that fit like armor. Her face held the practiced neutrality of corporate confidence. Her eyes betrayed her. The crater replayed on loop. Every time the footage reached the moment Krillin hit, a subtle tremor ran through Ashley's jaw. The structural analysis overlay showed the impact in numbers, and numbers had a way of stripping away denial. Impact force, comparable to a small meteor. Estimated energy output, beyond any recorded soup landing. Flight capability confirmed, no visible propulsion. No compound V markers detected in preliminary remote scan. Her assistant waited beside her, holding a folder that was already too thick for an incident that began less than an hour ago. "Tell me the source feed is clean," Ashley said. "It's clean," the assistant replied. "The satellite captured everything. Our street cams captured the rest. Social media has it from 15 angles." Ashley's throat tightened. How many views? 17 million across platforms and climbing. Homelander, man, is the top trend. People are making memes already. Ashley stared at the screen where Krillin rose from the crater, dusting off his gi like it was nothing. "That's not funny," she said, voice flat. The assistant hesitated. "It's internet funny." Ashley's fingers found a strand of hair and pulled. The pain helped her focus. "Any match?" she asked. "No match, no ID, no immigration record, no birth record, no hospital records. Biometrics do not match any known soup files. Fingerprints don't exist in any database. Police processing is underway. We're pulling everything in real time." Ashley's eyes darted to another screen. A live shot of Homelander hovering outside the precinct. His smile flashed for cameras. The crowd screamed. The anchor praised him. Ashley did not smile. She watched his micro-expressions, the fraction of a second where his eyes hardened. She watched the way his posture stayed too still, a man holding himself in place because motion would become violence. "He knows," she whispered. The assistant pretended he had not heard. A door hissed open behind them. A man stepped in, older, steady,
wearing a suit that looked simple until you realized it could buy a house. Stan Edgar did not hurry. He did not need to. The room's temperature changed around him anyway. Ashley straightened as if yanked by a wire. "Mr. Edgar." Edgar's gaze slid over the screens without interest in the spectacle. He focused on the data. He said, "Play it." Ashley topped. The breach replayed. Edgar watched the moment the air tore, then the moment Krillin landed, then the moment Krillin floated. He watched the police aim guns. He watched phones lift. He watched Homelander arrive. Edgar said nothing for a long time. Silence thickened in the room. "Is it Compound V?" Ashley asked, unable to hold it back. Edgar kept his eyes on the screen. "No." "How can you be sure?" "Because V has signatures. This does not." Ashley's hair strand snapped in her fingers. She dropped it like it had betrayed her. "So what is he?" Edgar turned his head slightly. "A problem." The assistant swallowed. "Sir, if he isn't ours, we can frame him as a threat. Foreign program, rogue soup, terrorist." Edgar's gaze sharpened. "Framing requires the public to believe we understand what we are framing. We do not." Ashley forced her voice steady. "We can bring him in, offer him a place, make him one of ours." Edgar looked at her then, direct, patient, and not kind. "You cannot own what you cannot control." Ashley's breath hitched. "We control the narrative." Edgar returned his attention to the screens. "Narrative control depends on scarcity. Vought sells the idea that our heroes represent the top of human enhancement. A naturally occurring anomaly with power beyond our products breaks scarcity." He spoke as if explaining a business model, not a man. Another screen flashed an update. Police body cam footage. Krillin obeying commands, kneeling, lying on the ground, allowing cuffs. Ashley exhaled, a thin release. "He's cooperative." "Or he's choosing not to resist," Edgar replied. "Those are different." Ashley's voice tightened. "Homelander is outside, if he interacts with the anomaly unsupervised." Edgar's expression barely shifted. "Homelander will do what Homelander does. Our job is to ensure his actions remain useful." The assistant cleared his throat. "Sir, we could send a team to secure the suspect from the precinct." Edgar raised a hand. The assistant stopped talking immediately. "No," Edgar said. "The police have him in custody. Let them do what they do. We will not appear panicked. We will appear informed." Ashley's fingers twitched again. "But he's trending." "I know," Edgar said. "That is why we move carefully." He topped the screen showing social sentiment analysis. Words pulsed and shifted in a cloud. Alien, soup, new hero, government cover-up, Vought secret, antichrist, blessing, threat. Edgar's mouth formed the faintest hint of a smile. "Humans fear uncertainty. They will accept any explanation that ends fear. We will provide it." Ashley leaned forward. "So what's the plan?" Edgar turned slightly, addressing the room without raising his voice. "First, we learn what he is. Second, we assess whether he can be integrated. Third, we ensure Homelander does not engage without oversight. Fourth, we prepare contingencies for non-compliance." "Sir, non-compliance?" Ashley asked. Edgar looked at the live precinct feed again. The camera caught Krillin's face through a corridor window. Calm, alert, patient. Edgar studied him like a financial statement. "You cannot threaten someone who does not fear death," he said, "so you do not threaten him with death." Ashley's voice came out small. "Then what?" "You threaten him with the world around him," Edgar replied. "You make the environment hostile. You make cooperation the easiest path." The assistant asked, "Legal?" Edgar nodded. "Legal. Media, bureaucracy, social pressure, the same tools we use on everyone." Ashley felt a chill crawl up her spine. She had watched Vought crush people without ever touching them. She knew what tools meant. Her tablet buzzed. A message. "Conference room A. 5 minutes, bring everything." Edgar did not look at her device. He did not need to. He walked toward the door. "Ashley," he said without turning, "do not let your fear make you careless." Ashley's fingers found another strand of hair. She pulled it hard enough to sting. "Yes, sir." Edgar paused at the threshold and added, "And keep Homelander busy. Give him cameras, give him applause, give him a script." Ashley's voice tightened. "And if he ignores the script?" Edgar's tone stayed calm. "Then we remind him who owns the stage." He left. The room's screens kept cycling. The city kept breathing. Outside the precinct, the crowd kept cheering. Down below, Krillin sought behind concrete and glass, still thinking he had fallen into a strange city. He had not yet understood he had fallen into an organization that watched the world like a ledger, every human life a line item, every hero a product, every problem a cost to be managed. And Vought had just written his name on the balance sheet.
VNN ran a segment with a superhuman expert who had never met a superhuman outside a green room. He said Krillin's outfit suggested foreign influence. He said the bald head could indicate a cult. He said the crater might have been staged using controlled explosives. He smiled as he said it. In another studio, a retired general demanded the government seize Krillin as a national security threat. In another, a comedian made jokes about bald aliens ruining property values. In another, a preacher declared Krillin a demon. The city did what cities did. It turned fear into commerce. Inside the precinct, officers watched the coverage and felt their own fear harden into justification. "See," one said, "Vaught's looking. He's real." "Or he's Vought," another answered. "Either way, we're in it now." A younger officer, the one who had asked Krillin if he was a soup, stood near the holding cells and stared at the reinforced door. He looked like he wanted to say something to Krillin. He did not. He walked away instead. Krillin listened to all of it through vibrations and muffled voices. He could have left. He could have bent the cuffs with a twitch and walked through the door like it was paper. He could have floated out of the precinct and vanished above the skyline before the helicopters adjusted their cameras. He stayed. He told himself he stayed because he did not want to hurt anyone. He told himself he stayed because cooperation would lead to answers. He told himself he stayed because escalation would make everything worse. Part of him understood a simpler truth. He stayed because this world had already begun shaping him into a story, and he needed to learn the rules of the story before he fought back. Then the door opened. A woman stepped into the corridor outside his cell. Expensive suit, perfect posture, eyes tired in a way sleep could not fix. Two men in tactical gear flanked her, both armed, both watching Krillin's door like it might explode. Krillin sensed her fear before he saw her face. It was controlled, packaged, and sharp, professional fear. She stopped at the cell and forced a smile that looked polished and brittle. "Mr. she began, as if the name mattered. "Krillin," he said. Her smile tightened, then held. "Mr. Krillin, I'm Ashley Barrett, Senior Vice President of Hero Management at Vought International. I think we should talk about your future." Krillin opened his eyes fully and looked at her through the bars. Behind her, on the other side of the one-way mirror, someone else watched. Someone calm, someone patient, someone who would not introduce himself until he believed the room belonged to him. Krillin did not know his name yet, but he felt the weight of the attention, and he understood the worst part. This was not a rescue. It was an acquisition attempt. Ashley Barrett did not enter the precinct like a savior. She entered like an audit. Her heels clicked on concrete with controlled rhythm. The two men beside her moved with tactical precision, eyes scanning corners, hands near weapons they knew would mean nothing if Krillin decided to stop pretending. Their tension leaked through their posture. Ashley's tension hid behind posture. Krillin watched her through the bars. He could smell her perfume beneath the antiseptic air, expensive and sharp. He could see the practiced smile, the kind used in boardrooms and on camera, the kind that said, "Trust me," while the eyes said, "Comply." "Mr. Krillin," she repeated, as if anchoring the name made him more manageable.
First, I want to apologize for the inconvenience. This is all, obviously, a misunderstanding. Krillin tilted his head slightly. You're with Vought. Yes, Ashley said quickly, and I'm here to help. You've been through a lot today. We can get you out of here, somewhere safe, somewhere comfortable, and we can figure out what happened and what we do next. Her voice stayed smooth, but her fingers twitched once toward her hair and stopped. She caught herself. Krillin kept his tone calm. You can get me out. Ashley nodded. We have relationships, jurisdictions, processes. We can make this go away. Make it go away, Krillin repeated, tasting the phrase. Ashley's smile did not change. I mean resolve it quietly, discreetly, before it becomes worse. Krillin glanced at the corridor cameras. It's already viral. Ashley's eyelid flickered. Yes, it is, which is why it's important you let us handle the next steps. Vought is very experienced in public incidents. Public incidents. He heard how she refused to call him a person. He was an incident, an asset, a liability. Why are you here? Krillin asked. Ashley lifted her chin, as if she had been waiting for permission to deliver the pitch. Because you're extraordinary, and extraordinary things belong in a framework that keeps people safe. The public is frightened. The authorities don't know what to do. You do not have an established identity, no legal status, no documentation. That makes you vulnerable. Krillin's eyes narrowed slightly. And you can fix that? We can, Ashley said. We can give you protection, legal representation, resources. We can help you find answers. In exchange, we ask for cooperation. There it was, not a request, a transaction. Krillin stood and stepped closer to the bars. He did not loom, he simply existed, and her body reacted anyway. Her breath caught for half a beat. The two men beside her tightened their stance. I didn't come here on purpose, Krillin said. I want to go home. Ashley nodded fast. Of course, and Vought can help with that. We have the best scientists, the best tech, the best research facilities on Earth. On Earth. Krillin filed the phrase away. She assumed there was only one Earth. She reached into a folder and pulled out a tablet, swiping to a clip. The footage of his landing, slowed, enhanced, annotated with numbers and overlays. Our analysis suggests you possess abilities beyond typical soup parameters: flight, strength, durability, possibly energy projection. Krillin held his expression steady. I'm not a soup. Ashley's smile tightened again, still polished. That word has a meaning here. It's the category the world understands. Fighting the category will only make you look unstable. You don't want to look unstable, Mr. Krillin. There was the teeth. Krillin's voice stayed level. So what do you want? Ashley's eyes brightened with relief. She had found the direction she knew. We want to help you. Then she corrected herself without changing tone. We want to work with you. You have an incredible look, an incredible origin angle, and incredible potential to inspire people. You could do real good here with the right support. The right support, Krillin repeated. Ashley topped the tablet again. Another screen, a mock image, clearly rushed, but already styled like a poster. Krillin and his orange G, cleaned up, lighting adjusted, standing behind a Vought logo. A headline, America's newest hero. Krillin stared at it. Something in his stomach turned. It felt like looking at his own reflection in a mirror that lied. You made this already, he said. Ashley's smile stayed fixed. We prepare contingencies. Contingencies, he echoed. She leaned closer, lowering her voice as if confiding. The Seven has had, recently, some restructuring. There may be an opportunity for you. Krillin blinked. You want me to join your hero team? We want you to consider it, Ashley said quickly. Your humility tests extremely well. Your aesthetic is distinctive. The bald look reads confident. The outfit is bold. We would refine it, of course, upgrade materials, add branding. Branding, Krillin said, and he could not hide the edge. Ashley's smile faltered for the first time, then snapped back into place. Presentation matters. People need symbols. Heroes aren't symbols, they're people who help. Ashley nodded too quickly. Yes, exactly. And we help you help them. We put you on a platform. We make sure your actions reach millions. I have helped save the universe, Krillin said quietly. Ashley froze, then laughed once, uncertain, as if it was hoping it was a joke. When she saw his face, the laugh died. You're serious? I've fought people who could destroy galaxies. I've died doing it. I've come back and kept fighting, so forgive me if I'm not impressed by brand strategy. Silence. Ashley's eyes darted toward the one-way mirror. For a moment, her corporate mask slipped and Krillin saw the truth. She was not in control. She was delivering a message. She was terrified of delivering it wrong. She cleared her throat. That's an incredible story. We can work with that. We would obviously adapt it for believability. Focus groups prefer relatable stakes. Krillin stared. Focus groups? Ashley recovered speed. The point is, you can be protected here. You can be celebrated. You can help people. And in exchange, we guide the narrative so it does not become dangerous. Krillin breathed in slowly. He could feel the trap closing, soft and polite. And if I say no? He asked. Ashley's smile remained, but her eyes tightened again. Then you remain undocumented, vulnerable, and at the mercy of institutions that do not know what to do with you. You would be alone. The word alone landed heavier than she intended. Krillin's jaw tightened. He thought of Android 18, of Marin, of friends who would notice he vanished. He thought of Bulma's irritation turning into fear. He thought of being trapped in a world that treated heroism like a product line. He looked at Ashley. You aren't offering help, you're offering ownership. Ashley inhaled sharply. Her fingers went to her hair and pulled once hard, then dropped the strand as if it had burned her. Mr. Krillin, she said, voice still smooth. This is how the world works here. Krillin opened his mouth to answer. A door at the far end of the corridor opened. The air changed. Officers straightened without knowing why. Even Ashley's posture shifted, sharper, more obedient. A man walked, older, black, suit that looked like it never wrinkled in its life. He moved without hurry, and everyone made room as if the space belonged to him by default. Ashley's smile became almost reverent. Mr. Edgar. Stan Edgar did not look at her first. He looked at Krillin through the bars with a calm that felt more dangerous than Homelander's hovering threat. Not because Edgar had power in his body, Krillin sensed none, but Edgar's certainty carried its own gravity. Mr. Krillin, I understand you have questions. Let's stop doing this in a hallway. He glanced at the officers. Release him into Vought custody. The taller officer hesitated. Sir, protocol. Edgar's gaze slid to him. His words died. Ashley's throat tightened. Yes, of course. The locks clicked. The reinforced door opened. Krillin stepped out. He kept his hands behind him, cuffs still on, but the room felt like it had reoriented around Edgar's presence. Edgar studied him a moment longer, then turned. Come, we'll talk properly. Krillin followed, and as he walked past the one-way mirror, he felt eyes behind it. Not police eyes, corporate eyes. Eyes that had already run projections on his life. He hadn't even spoken a full hour in this world, and Vought had already started writing his future in legal language.
The elevator ride up through Vought Tower felt like being swallowed by a machine that smiled. Krillin stood with his cuffed hands behind him, while Ashley and the tactical men flanked him like polite jailers. The walls were brushed steel. The lighting was warm in a way that tried to suggest comfort. Screens mounted inside the elevator played Vought promos on mute. Heroes smiling, disasters solved, branded hope sold in 30-second loops. Edgar stood at the front, hands folded, watching floor numbers climb as if nothing in the world could surprise him. He did not speak. He did not need to. The silence itself felt like a tool he used. When the doors opened, air hit Krillin that smelled cleaner than air should. The hallway beyond was glass and marble and soft carpet that muffled footsteps. Employees in suits glanced once, then looked away fast, trained to not notice problems unless instructed. They entered a conference room with glass walls and leather chairs arranged to make visitors feel important and exposed at the same time. A long table sat under recessed lighting, its surface polished enough to reflect faces like a judge's bench. "Remove the cuffs," Edgar said, voice calm. The tactical men hesitated. Ashley's eyes flicked between them and Edgar. "Remove them," Edgar repeated, without raising his voice. The cuffs clicked open. Krillin rubbed his wrists out of habit. The skin was unmarked. The men looked uncomfortable, as if they had just disarmed themselves in front of an earthquake. Edgar gestured to a chair. "Sit." Krillin sat, not because he had to, but because he wanted to understand the kind of man who did not need to shout to be obeyed. Ashley remained standing by the glass wall, arms crossed, a corporate soldier waiting for instructions. Her fingers hovered near her hair, then dropped. Edgar poured himself water from a crystal carafe. He took a measured sip, then looked directly at Krillin. "You are not from this world," Edgar said. Not a question. "No," Krillin replied. "You are not a Vought asset. You are not a government asset. You are not an independent soup created through Compound V." Krillin watched him. "Correct." Edgar nodded once, as if confirming a line item. "You have abilities that exceed any known enhanced individual on this planet." "I trained them. I earned them." Edgar did not react to the word earned. "The method is irrelevant. The outcome is disruptive." Krillin's jaw tightened. "I didn't mean to disrupt anything. I need to go home." Edgar set his glass down. "Intent is rarely relevant. Outcome is always relevant." He tapped a tablet on the table. Footage appeared. Krillin landing, the crater, the crowd, the police. Homelander hovering. The footage had overlays, numbers, charts, predictive curves. Edgar's tone stayed even. "Your arrival created a narrative shock. The public has been trained to believe super capability is structured, managed, and ultimately safe because Vought is involved. You demonstrated a level of power outside that structure, on camera. That creates uncertainty." Krillin leaned forward slightly. "So you're worried about your brand?" Edgar's eyes did not blink. "I am worried about stability." Ashley's lips pressed together. Krillin glanced at her and saw the relief in her posture. Stability sounded noble. It made the machine feel like a guardian. Krillin looked back at Edgar. "Stability for who?" His reply came without hesitation. "For the system that prevents mass panic, for the economy that keeps this city functioning, for the political infrastructure that maintains order, for the public perception that keeps soups from being hunted and killed by an increasingly anxious government." Krillin listened carefully. Edgar's words had logic. He could hear the shape of a world that needed to believe someone had a handle on the monsters. "And you," Krillin said, "own that handle." Edgar did not deny it. "We manage it." Krillin's voice stayed calm, but his patience thinned. "Your heroes are products. You sell them." Edgar's mouth formed something between a smile and a dismissal. "We sell reassurance." Krillin thought of the billboard, of the chanting crowd, of the officer's pride that sounded like fear. "Your reassurance looks like worship. It looks like relief. Relief that someone powerful is on their side." Krillin leaned back. "And if that powerful person isn't on their side?" Edgar held his gaze. "Then we have a problem." Silence settled. The air in the room felt cooler. Edgar spoke again. "Let's be direct, Mr. Krillin. You have two options." Ashley's shoulders tensed. The tactical men shifted. Even they understood the moment had turned. "Option 1, you cooperate." Krillin's eyes narrowed slightly. "Cooperate how?" Edgar steepled his fingers. "You are not interested in joining the Seven. You are not interested in being managed as a hero brand. I accept that. But you are interested in going home, and we have resources that can help you pursue that goal."
Krillin's heart kicked once, controlled but real. You can get me home? Edgar's voice remained steady. We can research a method. Dimensional travel is not a subject our public R&D discusses, but we have scientists with experience in fringe physics. We have facilities, we have funding, we have discretion. And in exchange, I become useful. In exchange, you become aligned. He slid a thin folder across the table, paper, legal language, Vought letterhead. Krillin did not open it yet. Edgar continued. You sign a consulting agreement. You make occasional public appearances. You demonstrate that you are not a rogue threat. You do not attack Vought assets. You do not undermine our narrative. Krillin's voice hardened. So I lie. You contextualize, Edgar said. You allow the public to accept your existence without panic. Krillin felt anger rise, but he kept it contained. And if I refuse? Edgar did not change expression. Option 2, we make you irrelevant. Ashley inhaled sharply. Krillin watched her fingers go to her hair and stop. Even she did not like hearing the blunt version. Krillin met Edgar's eyes. You mean you destroy me? Edgar shook his head slightly. No, physical harm would be inefficient. You are too visible, too powerful. Martyrdom creates sympathy, and sympathy creates instability. He spoke like a man describing logistics. We make you irrelevant, he repeated. We bury you under bureaucracy. We question your sanity. We leak edited footage. We produce experts who call you a hoax. We file lawsuits for property damage, reckless endangerment, visa disputes, financial blocks, and constant friction. Krillin's fists clenched once, then relaxed. That's extortion. That is governance, Edgar replied. This world is run by systems, not fistfights. Systems do not need to beat you in combat. They only need to surround you. Krillin's voice dropped. I could level this building. I assume you could. Then you would be a violent foreign entity attacking a corporation on American soil, and the state would respond with every tool it has, regardless of how many civilians die in the process. You could win the fight and lose everything else. Krillin held his gaze. You're threatening to ruin my life. Edgar nodded once, almost polite. I am explaining consequences. Krillin breathed in, slow. You said you care about stability. How is it stable to blackmail someone who is trying to go home? Edgar's eyes remained calm. Stability is not kindness, it is continuity. He rose from his chair and walked to the glass wall. Manhattan spread beneath them, dense with life and commerce and fragile bodies. Cars moved like blood cells through arteries. People streamed across sidewalks unaware they were visible from above as data. Edgar spoke without turning. Power without leverage is spectacle. You have power, I have leverage. Krillin's jaw tightened. You control the media. I control the narrative infrastructure. Media is a symptom. Krillin stared at the folder on the table. How long do I have? Edgar turned back. 48 hours. Ashley's shoulders dropped a fraction, as if relieved a deadline existed. Deadlines made chaos feel manageable. Edgar's tone remained calm. Spend that time learning how this world functions. Watch how heroes operate here. Decide whether you want to be an asset or an obstacle. He gestured towards the door. Ashley will arrange housing, security, a phone, access to information. Consider it courtesy and surveillance. Krillin stood. If I leave now? Edgar nodded. You leave. We are not imprisoning you. We are presenting you with a reality. Krillin looked at him. And if I choose option 2? Edgar's smile was slight, controlled. Then we begin. The meeting ended without drama. That was Edgar's style.
The safe house Vought provided was an apartment that looked like a magazine had staged it and forgotten to add warmth. Exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the Hudson that would have felt peaceful if the glass did not also feel like a display case. The furniture was expensive, neutral, and uncomfortable in a way Krillin could not explain. Even the air smelled curated, as if someone had filtered out anything human. A phone sat on the counter, brand new, already unlocked. A stack of clothes lay folded beside it, all in his size. Someone had measured him without asking. Krillin walked to the window and looked down. Far below, a black SUV idled at the curb. Two men inside pretended to look at their own phones. Courtesy and surveillance, Edgar had said. Krillin could sense them through walls, their nervous breathing, their small spikes of adrenaline whenever he moved too close to the window. He could also sense the other layers. Cameras in the lobby, cameras on the streak, the faint electronic buzz of something mounted near the ceiling that was not a smoke detector. He turned away and picked up the phone. The internet here was familiar in shape and poisonous in content. He searched his own name first, then realized quickly nobody cared about Krillin. They cared about Crater Man. Thousands of videos, millions of comments, people arguing about whether he was a hoax, a demon, a government program. Merch listings already existed, shirts, stickers, a cheap plastic figure with a bald head and orange outfit. His stomach tightened. He clicked on a Vought page. Polished, bright. Hero profiles like celebrity bios. Homelander featured at the top, framed in patriotic colors, smile perfect, eyes blink enough to be whatever the viewer needed. The Seven's members had sponsorships, curated charity work, public appearances. Krillin watched a clip labeled, "Homelander Rescues 50 from Apartment Fire." The footage looked heroic. He cradled a child, smiling at cameras, cape flowing like it had been designed to catch wind on cue. Krillin paused the video and stared at the child's face. The kid was crying, but not with relief, fear. He flinched when Homelander adjusted his grip. The hero's smile did not change, but something in his eyes hardened for a fraction of a second. Krillin replayed it, slower. He saw it again, a moment where performance slipped and something predatory looked out. He moved on. A-Train, Speedster, sponsored by an energy drink. Clips of rescues cut between ads. One video showed him laughing on a talk show while the host joked about collateral damage. The audience laughed too. The Deep, Ocean Hero. More clips of him doing interviews than saving anyone. A charity event by an aquarium. Fans screaming. Queen Maeve. Less content. More controlled. More careful. Black Noir. Silent. Masked. Marketed as mysterious. Starlight. Newer. Brighter. The relatable one. Krillin watched her smile and saw strain behind it. Then he found something else. Footage from a fan camera, a hero running through a woman. Not metaphor, not accident you could shrug off. The woman became red mist. The hero stopped, looked down, looked irritated, then left. A-Train, the caption said. Krillin's skin tightened, like his body wanted to reject the information. He read the official statement. The victim was in a restricted area. Vought expressed condolences. The hero was devastated. The hero returned to duty after rehabilitation. Krillin set the phone down carefully, as if it might explode. This was not heroism. This was power with PR. He needed to see it in person. The internet could be edited. People could lie. But the city itself would tell the truth if you watched the right angles. He dressed in the clothes Vought provided, plain, gray, designed to make him less visible. His gi remained folded on the chair like a declaration he did not want to hide but did not want to weaponize. He left the apartment. The SUV followed. He walked down the street, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed. He felt eyes on him anyway. People recognized him even without the orange. Some stared, some whispered, some raised phones and filmed anyway. The city had learned his outline. He passed a coffee shop with a sign advertising a Homelander latte. The cup designs displayed the Seven's faces.
A child inside wore a cape and held a toy laser visor. A street vendor sold shirts with Crater Man printed in bold letters, already updated with memes. Next to them, stocks of Homelander flags and A-Train sneakers. The vendor's face lit up when he saw Krillin, then tightened when Krillin did not stop. Krillin kept walking. He moved north, then east, drifting without a plan. He wanted ordinary people. He wanted to feel this world without Vought's filtered glass. He found them in the edges. Delivery workers with tired eyes, a woman counting coins before entering the subway, a man sleeping in a doorway while tourists stepped around him. He sat on a bench near a small park and listened. Two men argued nearby. "Vought's gonna handle it. They always do." "You don't know that," the other replied. "If this guy is stronger than Homelander, what happens?" The first man scoffed. "Nobody's stronger than Homelander." Krillin felt the certainty in the statement, not belief, need. A woman pushed a stroller past them wearing a 7-branded hoodie. She looked at Krillin, then looked away fast, gripping the stroller handle tighter. Fear was everywhere, but it wore different masks. Some people feared him. Some people feared losing their idols. Some people feared the truth behind the idols. He stood and continued. Near Times Square, he saw what passed for heroism. A teenager on a motorcycle snatched a purse from a woman's shoulder and tore down the street. The woman screamed, stumbling. People turned. A few shouted. Nobody moved. Krillin's instincts fired. He started forward, already calculating the angle, the speed, the gentle way to stop the thief without hurting him. Then a sonic boom crocked the air. A blur appeared in the intersection, and the world seemed to bend around it. The motorcycle jerked to a stop, as if grabbed by an invisible hand. The teenager flew off, skidding across pavement. He hit hard. His arm bent wrong. Krillin stopped. A-Train stood over the fallen kid, one hand holding the purse, the other raised in a victory pose. He smiled toward the nearest cameras. Cameras? Krillin had not noticed them at first. 2 professional rigs positioned near the corner, a third on a shoulder. People around them wearing Vought badges. They were already filming before A-Train arrived. A-Train handed the purse to the woman. She took it with shaking hands, not looking at him, eyes wide with shock. "Another day, another save," A-Train announced, voice booming. "New York, remember to stay safe, stay fast, and check out V-Burst, available at all major retailers." He flashed perfect teeth. The camera zoomed in. The crowd laughed and clapped, phones rising. The woman tried to say thank you, but her voice cracked. She backed away like she wanted to escape both the thief and the hero. A-Train vanished with another crack of sound, leaving wind and applause behind. The teenager groaned on the ground. Krillin moved to him instantly, kneeling. "Don't move," Krillin said. "Your arm's broken. You need a hospital." The teenager's eyes widened with terror. He scrambled back on his good arm, dragging himself away. "Don't touch me." "I'm not going to hurt you," Krillin said. The kid shook his head hard. "If you touch me, it's assault, and they'll sue you. If I go to the hospital, they'll report it, and Vought's lawyers will bury me. I can't afford it." Krillin stared, trying to process the sentence. "You stole a purse." The kid's face twisted. I know, I'm stupid, but I didn't deserve this." Krillin looked at the arm again. The bone had not pierced skin, but it was badly set. The kid was shaking from shock and pain. "You need help," Krillin repeated. The kid swallowed, eyes flicking around, searching for cameras. "Are you with Vought?" "No." "Then it's worse." He pushed himself up, gritting his teeth, cradling his arm. "Just let me go, please." Krillin stayed still because forcing help here might be violence in another form. The kid limped away into the crowd, swallowed by people who pretended not to see him. Krillin watched him disappear. He felt the city's wrongness crystallize into something hard. In his world, a hero stopped crime and then helped the criminal if they were hurt because pain did not negate humanity. Here, the hero stopped crime for cameras, harmed the criminal for ratings, and the victim of justice feared the system more than his injury. Krillin's phone buzzed. He looked down. A message from an unknown number. Nice work staying quiet, but quiet won't save anyone here. Call me if you want to matter. Billy Butcher. Krillin stared at the screen, then at the city, then at the black SUV across the street watching him watch the world. Edgar had offered 2 options. This world was already offering a third.
Krillin did not call the number. Not immediately. He walked for another hour with the phone heavy in his pocket, letting the city press its lessons into him. The SUV followed at a careful distance, not close enough to feel like pursuit, not far enough to be ignored. It was the kind of attention meant to create compliance through constant presence. He passed a bus stop plastered with a Vought advertisement, Homelander smiling beside a slogan about safety and family values. A child pointed at it and tugged his mother's sleeve. "That's the real hero," the child said, voice bright. Krillin kept walking. By the time he returned to the apartment, the sun had started to sink and the city's light shifted from hard glare to neon glow. The building's lobby had a doorman who pretended he did not recognize him. The elevator had a camera in the corner that watched his face. The apartment door shut behind him with a soft click. He stood for a moment in the quiet and listened. He could hear the security detail through the walls, 2 men in the hall pretending to be casual, voices low, phones in hand. He could hear the SUV engine still idling outside. He could hear the city breathing around it all. He picked up the phone and looked at Butcher's message again. He typed a reply and deleted it, typed again and deleted again. He did not like the idea of involving himself in whatever underground war this man represented. He also did not like the idea of doing nothing while a world called cruelty heroism. A knock came at the door. Not the polite knock of a neighbor, not the firm knock of Vought security. This was casual, almost lazy, as if the person outside had no fear of being refused. Krillin's senses expanded. He felt the presence in the hallway, human but sharp, body trained, heart rate controlled, anger like a quiet engine. He opened the door. A man in a Hawaiian shirt stood there like a mistake someone had allowed into a luxury building. Middle-aged, solid build, British accent waiting behind a mouth set into a thin line. His eyes were tired in a way that suggested he had seen the worst parts of people and decided to memorize them. He pushed past Krillin without asking. "Nice place," the man said, scanning the room with professional paranoia. He flicked his gaze to the ceiling corners, then to the windows, then to the subtle bulge near the smoke detector. "Vought putting you up proper, treating you like royalty before they sink the hook." Krillin shut the door. "Who are you?" The man turned, grinning without warmth. "Billy Butcher." He extended a hand as if introducing himself at a barbecue. Krillin shook it. The grip was strong, calloused, a man who used his hands for violence and did not pretend otherwise. "You texted," Krillin said. "Did I?" Butcher replied, as if it had been inevitable. Krillin nodded towards the hallway. "Vought has security." Butcher waved a hand. "Yeah, I know. 2 lads outside. One's pretending to check his phone, others pretending to be bored. Both'll be asleep in 10 minutes. Don't worry, they'll wake up with no memory of seeing me." Krillin's eyes narrowed. "How?" Butcher's grin widened. "You're not the only strange thing in this world, mate. Difference is, I know how to use the strange things." Krillin did not like the way he said use. Butcher walked to the window and peered down at the street. "SUV outside too. Black. 2 in front. One's eating. Cute." He turned back. "Right, I'll make this quick. Vought's already writing your story. They'll put you on billboards, sell you in cereal boxes, and if you refuse, they'll bury you alive under paperwork." Krillin's voice stayed even. "I met Edgar." "Did you? Stan the man. Cold as a morgue slab. Lovely bloke if you like your evil polite." Krillin watched him. "Why are you here?" Butcher's smile softened into something sharper. "Because you're a rare thing. You're real." Krillin did not answer. Butcher spread his arms. "Look at you. Calm, cooperative. Not once did you threaten anyone. Not once did you shout. You're strong enough to smash this tower in half, and you're still trying to be decent. That's unusual here." Krillin's jaw tightened.
Decency isn't unusual. Butcher looked at him like he was naive on purpose. It is in this business. Here, power turns people into animals. Vought feeds them applause until they forget they're human, then it cleans up the mess. Krillin walked to the kitchen counter and leaned against it, keeping distance without making it obvious. So what do you want? Butcher leaned back on the couch, boots on the coffee table like he owned the place. I want you to help me kill Homelander. The sentence landed clean and blunt. No ceremony, no hesitation, like he'd asked Krillin to help carry groceries. Krillin stared. No. Butcher's grin did not change. There it is, the hero answer. I'm not a killer. Course you're not. You've got that glow, genuine, you give a damn, all that noble stuff. That's why you're useful. Krillin's eyes hardened. Don't talk about me like I'm a tool. Butcher shrugged. In this world, everyone's a tool. Vought uses you. Government uses you. Media uses you. Only question is, what do you use your strength for? Krillin breathed in slowly. Why Homelander? Butcher's expression shifted. The grin faded into something flat and heavy. Because he's not a hero. He's a monster wearing a flag. Krillin watched him. He could sense the truth behind Butcher's anger. Not ki, but grief shaped into a weapon. You don't know him. Butcher laughed once, bitter. I know he raped my wife. The room's air tightened. The words carried a dead weight that stripped away banter. Krillin's mouth opened and closed. I'm sorry. Butcher's eyes did not soften. Yeah, sorry doesn't do much. Krillin's voice stayed careful. If that happened, then expose him. Go to the authorities. Butcher's grin returned, but it was ugly now. Authorities. Vought owns half the authorities. The other half is on the payroll or scared. They own the news networks, the algorithms, the fact-checkers. They can make a lie look like truth and make truth look like terrorism. You go public against them, they don't shoot you, they erase you. They turn you into a joke, a lunatic, a threat. Then they destroy everything around you until you beg for a cage. Krillin remembered Edgar's calm voice. Bureaucracy, friction, constant grinding weight. Butcher, Krillin said, murder isn't justice. Butcher leaned forward. You saw A-Train break that kid's arm for a camera moment. You saw the crowd clap. That's justice here. You saw a city worship predators because predators wear capes. Homelander's the top predator. He kills because he can. Vought covers it because it keeps stock prices pretty. He's one bad day away from turning this place into ash. Krillin's fists clenched. If he's that dangerous, then why hasn't he already? Butcher's eyes narrowed. Because he still wants to be loved. That's the leash. Public adoration. Take that away, he snaps. Keep it, he kills in private when his ego gets bruised. Krillin looked away towards the windows. The city lights flickered across the river like a million small lies. What makes you think I can beat him? Krillin asked. Butcher's grin returned. More focused. Physics. Krillin looked back. Butcher pointed at Krillin's chest. Your landing crater. Had a mate run numbers. The force required means you're operating at a level compound V never produced. You're not chemically enhanced, you're naturally strong. You're what Homelander pretends to be. I'm not a god. Good. Gods here are spoiled brats with lasers. You've got discipline. That's why you're dangerous to them. Krillin's voice tightened. And you want me to kill him? Butcher nodded. Yes. Krillin said, no. Butcher stared at him for a long moment, then exhaled. All right, let's pretend you're right. Let's pretend there's another way. How many people need to die before you admit this system won't fix itself? Krillin's jaw tightened. He thought of the kid with the broken arm. He thought of the woman turned to mist. He thought of the fear in the officer's eyes, the worship outside the precinct, the corporate smile on the billboard. Even if I wanted to help, Krillin said, I don't know this world. I don't know the rules. Butcher's voice lowered. That's why I'm here. I know the rules. I know the filth under the stage. And I know Vaught's already decided you're either theirs or an enemy. Edgar's playing nice because that's how he works. Makes you think you have options before the cage closes. Krillin stared at him. If I refuse, Edgar makes my life impossible. If I fight, I become the threat he wants. Butcher shrugged. Welcome to it. He pulled a card from his pocket and tossed it on the table. Secure number. Call if you decide you want to do something that matters. Krillin did not pick it up. And if I call, what happens? Butcher's grin sharpened. Then we start making Vought bleed. Krillin's voice went flat. You're asking me to start a war. Butcher leaned towards the door. War's already here. Vaught's been waging it quietly for decades. You just fell into the middle of it. He paused with his hand at the knob and looked back. One more thing. Homelander's heard about you. Not officially yet, but he will. And when he does, he'll see you as either a threat to eliminate or a toy to break. Neither ends well for anyone standing near you. The door opened. Butcher stepped into the hallway like he belonged there. Krillin watched him go, then listened. 2 muffled thuds outside, almost gentle. A pause, footsteps moving away. The security detail's breathing changed, slackening, unconscious. Krillin walked to the window and looked down. The SUV was still there. The city lights still glittered. The billboards still sold heroes. He stared at the card on the table. In his world, enemies were clear. Here,
Krillin did not sleep. He sat on the couch with the card on the table in front of him, phone in his hand, and the city's glow leaking through the windows like a silent morning. Every few minutes he checked the hallway with his senses. The security detail stayed unconscious longer than any normal nap should have lasted. Butcher had not lied about strange things in this world. At 2:17 a.m., his Vought-provided phone buzzed. Unknown number. Rooftop. Northwest corner. Come alone. Krillin stared at the message for a full breath. The SUV still idled below. The hall camera still watched. The device near the ceiling still hummed with monitoring intent. If he walked out normally, he would be followed. If he flew from the window, he would be recorded. He looked at the thin curtain by the bedroom. He slid it aside and found a narrow maintenance balcony beyond the glass, barely wide enough for a person to stand. He opened the door quietly and stepped out. The night air tasted colder than his Earth's air. It carried diesel, distant garbage, river damp. The city's sound was lower now, but never silent. It breathed through vents and sirens in endless motion. Krillin dropped from the balcony to the one below, then to the next, using controlled falls that left no impacts. He moved along the building's outer skin, using tiny footholds and the friction of his palms. He kept his ki contained, minimal, so the cameras would see only a blur if they saw anything at all. When he reached an alley behind the building, he slipped into darkness and lifted off, rising fast but not explosive, keeping his ascent tight to the wall. He reached the rooftop in seconds. The northwest corner was bare. HVAC units hummed. A low wall edged the roof. Beyond it, the city stretched in jagged light. Krillin hovered a foot above the surface, then settled, listening. A signature stood near the ledge. Not human normal, enhanced, artificial, but not hollow in the same way as the others. There was strain inside it, like electricity forced through a body that did not want to be a conduit. A woman stepped out from behind an HVAC unit. Her costume looked designed by a committee, metallic gold and white, a star emblem at the chest, fabric that caught light even in darkness. It should have made her look like a symbol. Instead, she looked tired. Her face held makeup that fought exhaustion. Her eyes were sharp but frayed at the edges. She stood with a readiness that felt like it had been learned the hard way. "You're Starlight," Krillin said, because he had watched enough clips to recognize her. "And you're Crater Man," she replied, voice flat, or whatever they're calling you today. Krillin's brow furrowed. "Who are you really?" She hesitated, then stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Annie January. The costume is for them." "Them," Krillin repeated. "Vought," she said. Her lips tightened. "Always Vought." Krillin glanced toward the edge of the roof. He could sense helicopters far out, drones, cameras, but none close enough to hear this, not yet. "Why did you call me?" he asked. Annie's gaze flicked to the skyline as if measuring threats.
Because you're new and you're strong, and Vought's terrified of you. I noticed, Krillin said. She let out a humorless breath. They're not scared of you because you might hurt people. They're scared because you prove their whole thing is a lie. Krillin kept his voice quiet. Their thing. Compound V, Annie said. Their miracle drug, their secret sauce, the reason they can claim they make heroes. They sell the idea that power comes from them, that it's controlled by them, that if you want safety, you need their product. Krillin looked at her. And you don't fit? You don't fit, she confirmed. You fell out of the sky and made a crater just landing, and you didn't have a V signature. Your power they don't own. Krillin's jaw tightened. So you came to recruit me? Annie shook her head. Butcher doesn't recruit me. Edgar doesn't own me. I make my own choices. Krillin studied her face. There was sincerity there, but it was bruised. You believe that? I have to, she said. Otherwise, I'm just another product. A gust of wind rolled across the roof, fluttering her cape. She pulled it back into place with irritation, then leaned on the low wall and looked down at the city. I joined the Seven because I wanted to help people, she said. I grew up watching heroes. I thought it meant something. I thought if I got on the team, I could make a difference. Krillin waited. Annie's voice tightened. Then I got there and found out the Deep's a rapist. A-Train kills people and jokes about it. Maeve drinks herself numb. Noir is a Vought weapon. And Homelander? She trailed off, eyes fixed on the distance. Krillin felt the air shift around her name, like saying it out loud made it more dangerous. Homelander's what? He asked. Annie's mouth pressed into a line. A psychopath. And the worst part is, he's a psychopath in secret. He's a psychopath who knows he's untouchable, so he plays the hero for cameras and does whatever he wants when the cameras aren't pointed the right way. Krillin's fists clenched, then relaxed. Why haven't you exposed him? Annie laughed once, bitter. Because Vought owns the exposure. They own the networks. They own the talking heads. They own the narrative. If I speak, they destroy me. Not physically. They ruin my credibility. They leak things. They twist everything until I look insane. Krillin thought of Edgar's calm explanation of friction. It matched. Annie turned and faced him fully. You're outside the system. That's why I'm talking to you. Vought can't predict you yet. Yet, Krillin said. Yet, she agreed. And you need to understand something. This isn't your world. Here, power doesn't make you free. Power makes you a target. Krillin's voice stayed steady. I can defend myself. Annie shook her head. Not from what's coming. Krillin felt his senses flare. What's coming? She swallowed. Homelander. The name landed like a weight. Krillin's eyes narrowed. He's coming here? He's already on his way, Annie said. He heard about you. Vought tried to keep it quiet, but he hears everything. Edgar can manage him with PR and praise and a leash made of public adoration, but your existence threatens his whole identity. Krillin watched her carefully. Why tell me this? Annie's voice cracked slightly. Because I'm tired of watching people die while we pretend this is normal, and because if he shows up and you react wrong, he'll kill you or he'll kill everyone below us, maybe both. Krillin looked over the ledge. Thousands of people below, unaware. Traffic, late-night diners, a couple arguing on a corner, lives stacked tight. What does he want? Krillin asked. Annie's mouth tightened. He wants to see if you're real. He wants to establish dominance. He wants to make sure no one makes him look weak. Krillin exhaled slowly. He's insecure. Annie's eyes flicked to him. Insecure doesn't cover it. He's built his entire existence on being the strongest, the most loved. If you're stronger, even a little, it breaks something in him. Krillin stared at the skyline. He could sense something now, a pressure moving towards them, high, fast, and wrong. The artificial signature that had circled the precinct, stronger up close, like heat behind glass. He's close, Krillin said. Annie nodded. 30 seconds. Krillin looked back at her. If he's as dangerous as you say, why are you here? Why not run?
Annie's jaw tightened. Because if I run, he still comes, and if he comes alone, he might decide to make an example. At least if I'm here, I can try to keep him from going too far. At least I can witness. Witness, the word sounded like desperation. The air displaced with a clean, controlled force. A cape snapped in the wind as a figure descended from the sky like a staged miracle. Homelander landed on the roof with theatrical precision, knees barely bending. His costume was immaculate. His hair did not move out of place. His smile was bright enough to sell salvation. His eyes did not smile. "Well," he said, voice warm in a way that felt rehearsed. "This is cute." He looked at Annie first, as if acknowledging a prop. Then his gaze settled on Krillin. His smile widened. "So, you're the little crater guy." Annie's body tensed. Electricity whispered at the edges of her hands. Homelander did not look at it. Krillin stood still, letting his calm speak louder than threat. He studied Homelander's face up close and felt the wrongness beneath the surface. The power was real, but it was power without discipline, without balance, without the quiet center that training built. It felt like a weapon that had never been taught restraint. Homelander took a slow step forward, eyes scanning Krillin's body like a man inspecting merchandise. "I have to say," he continued, voice warm that felt rehearsed, "I'm a little offended. New hero in town and you didn't come say hello." Krillin did not answer immediately. He kept his voice even. "I'm not a hero." Homelander's smile sharpened. "Everyone's a hero when the cameras are on. The question is who you work for." Krillin met his gaze. "I work for people who need help." For a fraction of a second, Homelander's expression twitched, as if he didn't recognize the sentence. Then he laughed, bright and loud, a sound made for an audience that wasn't there. "Oh, I like you. You've got lines." Annie's voice cut in, carefully. "Homelander, this doesn't have to be—" Homelander's eyes slid to Annie. The warmth vanished. "Stay out of it, Annie." The air temp—
Homelander circled Krillin the way a predator circled a fence line. Casual enough to look bored, precise enough to make sure everyone understood who owned the space. He stopped close, too close for politeness, and smiled again. The smile held teeth and nothing else. "You're small," Homelander said, as if discovering a defect. "I expected more." Krillin kept his posture neutral. Size doesn't matter. Homelander laughed, and the sound was smooth, practiced. "Oh, that's adorable. You really believe that." He leaned in slightly, inhaling like he could smell weakness. Krillin could feel the heat that lived under Homelander's skin. It was not ki, it was chemical violence held in a human shape, pressing against a mask. "Tell me," Homelander said, "did Vought send you? Or are you one of those little foreign projects, China, Russia, some deep state nonsense?" "I'm from another dimension," Krillin said, keeping it simple. Homelander's smile widened. "Another dimension. That's fantastic. It's creative. It's fun. That's the kind of thing that tests well." Krillin watched his eyes. The words came out like jokes, but the eyes were measuring. Homelander was not amused. He was probing for the shape of the story he needed to tell himself. "It's the truth," Krillin said. The smile dropped. Homelander's eyes flickered red at the edges, not a full glow yet, a warning. "Here's the truth," Homelander said, voice lower, losing the TV warmth. "I'm the hero. I'm the top. I'm the one everyone looks up to. This city breathes because I let it. People wake up and feel safe because they know I'm in the sky." He stepped closer. Krillin did not move. "And then you show up," Homelander continued. "Make a crater, float around like you own gravity, and the crowd starts whispering. Is he stronger than Homelander? Do you know how insulting that is?" Krillin kept his voice level. "I didn't ask for attention." "Attention is your job," Homelander snapped, then caught himself, smoothing his expression back into a smile. "It will be your job if you're smart." Annie shifted, electricity crackling faintly along her fingers. Homelander's head turned toward her without moving the rest of his body. The red in his eyes sharpened. "Annie," he said, soft and dangerous. "Do you want to talk, or do you want to stand there and look pretty?" Annie swallowed. "I want you to calm down."
Homelander smiled wider. I am calm. He looked back at Krillin and the red returned to his eyes, stronger now. The air between them warmed. Krillin could feel it on his skin. Heat vision primed, not fired, a blade held at the throat, waiting. You think you're special, Homelander said. You think you can walk into my city and pretend you're above the rules. Krillin answered quietly. I'm not trying to be above anything. I just want to go home. Homelander's expression twitched again, confusion, then irritation. Home, Homelander repeated, as if the concept offended him. There is no home. There is this. There is me. There is what the world needs. Krillin watched him for a beat, then said the truth he could not keep down. You're not saying what the world needs. You're saying what you need. Homelander's eyes flared, full red now, the glow reflected in the glass of the surrounding buildings. Annie tensed harder. The rooftop's hum felt sharper, like the city itself noticed danger. What did you say? Homelander asked. Krillin kept his voice calm. You came here to establish dominance because you can't stand the idea that someone might be stronger than you. That's insecurity, not heroism. Homelander's nostrils flared. The heat in the air intensified. A thin line of smoke curled up from a metal vent behind Krillin where the temperature rose. Annie spoke quickly. Homelander, don't. Homelander ignored her. His gaze stayed locked on Krillin. The smile was gone now, replaced with a blank stare that looked almost childlike in its rage. I could kill you, Homelander said. I could burn you in half a second. No one would stop me. Krillin nodded slightly. You could try. The words were quiet. They were not a threat. They were a fact. Homelander's lips parted. For a moment he looked genuinely surprised, like he had never heard anyone respond to him without fear. Then anger rushed back in. The heat vision fired. Not at Krillin's head, not yet. It struck the rooftop beside him in a diagonal slash, carving melted stone and spraying sparks. A warning shot designed to force flinching. Krillin did not flinch. He looked down at the glowing cut in the roof and then back up. That's not control, that's intimidation. Homelander's jaw tightened. The red in his eyes pulsed brighter. Annie's hands lifted slightly, electricity gathering as a shield she might need in the next second. Krillin kept his voice steady. I've met people like you. They confuse strength with superiority. They confuse fear with respect. And they always break when someone stops being afraid. Homelander's hands clenched. He took a step forward and the air displaced around him with a pressure that made the rooftop vents rattle. Krillin felt the power, real and dangerous, but he also felt what sat beneath it. Panic. A man built to be worshipped who could not handle being measured. Homelander opened his mouth, ready to unleash something irreversible. A sharp electronic voice cut in through his earpiece, audible even from here. Homelander, stand down. PR issue. We need you now. Homelander froze. The red in his eyes flickered on then off, like an animal restrained by a chain it hated. He did not look away from Krillin, but the leash had tightened. You could hear it in the way his breathing changed. The voice in his earpiece continued, urgent, insistent. Firecracker is trending for the wrong reasons again. Get to Vought Tower now. Homelander's smile returned, but it was thin and sharp. He turned his head slightly as if listening, then looked back at Krillin with something that felt like promise. This conversation isn't over, Homelander said. I'm going to enjoy getting to know you. He leaned closer and lowered his voice so only Krillin and Annie could hear. In this world, I'm the only hero that matters, and if you keep pushing, I'll make sure you learn that the hard way. Then he lifted off, rising with controlled grace. He left behind a gust of wind that snapped Annie's cape and made the rooftop's heat cut cool rapidly. He shot upward and vanished into the night with a faint sonic crack. Silence hit hard after him. Annie released a breath that sounded like she had been holding it since childhood. The electricity around her hands faded, but her fingers still timbered. That was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, she said. Krillin watched the empty sky where Homelander had disappeared. Probably both. Annie stepped closer, her expression tight. He's on you now. Krillin nodded. I noticed. He doesn't let things go, Annie continued. Not when his ego gets bruised. You didn't just embarrass him, you threatened his identity. Krillin frowned slightly. I didn't beat him. You didn't have to, Annie said. You didn't flinch, that's enough. Nobody does that. Krillin's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. A new message from an unknown number. Rooftop interaction recorded. Return to Vought Tower at 8 a.m. for discussion. No name, no threat, just certainty. Krillin looked at Annie. Edgar, Krillin said. Annie's mouth tightened. He's watching everything, always. Krillin slipped the phone back into his pocket. He looked down at the streets far below, at the people moving through light and traffic, unaware how close they had been to becoming an example. I came here wanting to go home, Krillin said quietly. Now I'm in the middle of something I didn't choose. Annie's eyes stayed on him. That's how it works here, she said. You don't choose, they choose. Krillin lifted his gaze to the sky again. No, they try. Annie studied him for a long moment, then said deducibly, if you plan to push back, don't do it alone. Krillin did not answer, but his mind went to the card on the table in his apartment. Billy Butcher, war promised as a solution, Edgar's machine promising survival as a cage. And above it all, Homelander, a god made of chemicals and attention, now bruised and angry. Krillin turned toward the roof exit. I need to think. Annie nodded once. Think fast. This world doesn't give you time.
The summons arrived at 8 a.m. sharp. A polite knock at the apartment door, followed by a Vought security man in a clean suit holding a tablet like it was a badge of authority. His smile carried the same careful emptiness Krillin had already learned to distrust. Mr. Edgar requests your presence for breakfast, the man said. Car is waiting. Requests? Krillin repeated. The man's smile tightened. Yes, requests. Krillin did not argue. He had spent the night watching a god with heat vision get yanked by a corporate leash, and he had learned the most important truth of this world. The leash existed. The car ride to Vought Tower felt less like transport and more like being moved between controlled environments. The driver did not speak, the windows tinted just enough to keep the city at a distance. Krillin watched buildings slide past, watched screens flash hero faces, watched people drink coffee beneath billboards that told them who to worship. When they reached the tower, security opened paths without questions. Doors swung wide. Guards nodded without meeting his eyes. Everyone acted like the outcome had already been decided, and the meeting was just ceremony. The elevator rose in silence. The higher they went, the less Krillin could hear the city, until only the hum of the building remained, steady and confident. Edgar's private dining room sat on the 90th floor. Sunlight poured through glass walls, turning the table setting into sharp reflections. The smell of fresh fruit and strong coffee was dominant. The table was set for two, as if this was a friendly meeting between equals and not a negotiation under threat. Stan Edgar sat already eating with precise movements. He did not look up when Krillin entered. Sit, Edgar said. The Eggs Benedict is excellent. Krillin sat. A server appeared, poured coffee and vanished with the efficiency of someone trained never to linger near powerful people. Edgar scrolled on a tablet as if reading market updates. Krillin waited, letting silence do its work. He had met fighters who used quiet as intimidation. Edgar used quiet as default. You met Homelander last night, Edgar said, still looking at the screen. Yes, Krillin replied. On a rooftop, with starlight present. Krillin's eyes narrowed slightly. You had cameras. Edgar looked up for the first time, calm as a sealed vault. We have cameras everywhere. We also monitor Homelander's earpiece. We also run predictive models that flag likely points of conflict. Your movement patterns after your release created a probability cluster. Krillin felt a cold crawl under his skin. That's terrifying. That's infrastructure, Edgar replied, tone unchanged. Fear is a reaction. Infrastructure is a choice. Edgar set the tablet down and took a sip of coffee. You've spent your first 48 hours here gathering information.
You watched, you listened, you avoided direct confrontation. That was wise. Krillin's jaw tightened. Wise does not feel like the right word. It feels like I'm trapped. Edgar tilted his head. Trapped by what? By your system, Krillin said. By your surveillance, by your ability to turn truth into whatever you need it to be. Edgar nodded once. Now you're learning. This world runs on information advantage. I know where my assets are, what they're doing, and what they will likely do next. My competitors do not. My adversaries do not. That gap is control. Krillin stared at him. You talk about people like they're inventory. Edgar's expression did not change. People are variables. When you manage a system this large, you either acknowledge variables or the variables destroy the system. Krillin set his hands flat on the table. Homelander is one of your variables. Yes, Edgar said. And he's unstable, Krillin added. Edgar did not deny it. Clinically, he presents narcissistic personality disorder with psychopathic features. Practically, he presents risk. Krillin's eyes narrowed. You know he's dangerous, and you still put him on billboards. Edgar's voice stayed even. Because his danger creates deterrence. His image creates compliance. His public presence prevents foreign governments from deploying enhanced assets on our soil. His existence keeps competitors cautious. Krillin felt anger rise and kept it contained. You justify anything with stability. Edgar nodded once. Stability matters more than moral purity. Moral purity does not stop riots. It does not stop coups. It does not stop governments from building their own superhuman programs. It does not stop the public from panicking and demanding extermination. Krillin leaned forward. So you cover up murders. Edgar's eyes remained calm. We manage them. Krillin's voice sharpened. That's disgusting. Edgar took another sip of coffee. Your opinion is understandable. Your opinion does not change the math. He tapped his tablet and turned it towards Krillin. Security footage played. Homelander in a private training room destroying reinforced mannequins with heat vision. Not sparring, not drilling, not refining technique. He was venting. He carved walls into spirals. He crushed steel with his bare hands. He paced like a caged animal. This was 3 hours after your rooftop conversation, Edgar said. He did not sleep. He did not eat. He fantasized about scenarios where he proves his superiority. In one version, he kills you. In another, he kills Starlight. In several, he kills crowds. Krillin watched the footage and felt his stomach tighten. Why show me this? Edgar's voice stayed flat. Because you must understand consequences. Your mere existence destabilizes him. He believes he is the apex. When that belief fractures, he becomes unpredictable. Krillin looked up. Then stop him. Edgar's gaze did not move. We have tried. Weapons, containment, psychological conditioning. None of it works long term. The only reliable restraint is his need for public adoration. Krillin's jaw tightened. So you keep feeding it? Yes, Edgar said, because the alternative is worse. Krillin exhaled slowly. You want me to join your machine so you can keep him contained. Edgar nodded once. Correct. He slid the folder across the table. The same legal language, the same corporate binding. Our scientists made progress overnight. We analyzed the energy signature of your arrival. Dimensional travel is theoretically possible, but not quickly. It will take time and resources that you do not have outside Vought. Krillin's eyes flicked down to the folder, then back up. You're offering me a way home. I am offering you a path, Edgar corrected. In exchange, you sign. You appear publicly in controlled settings. You frame yourself as aligned with responsible oversight. You refrain from acts that undermine our system. Krillin's voice got cold. And if I refuse? Edgar did not raise his voice. Then we stop helping with your research. We establish you as an undocumented foreign national. We block bank access. We trigger property damage claims. We generate enough legal noise that you spend your days fighting paperwork instead of finding a way home. Krillin clenched his jaw. You cannot physically stop me. Edgar nodded, calm. I do not need to physically stop you. I need to surround you. I need to make your life here so complicated that every attempt to act creates consequences you cannot punch." Krillin stared at him. "That's still a threat." "That's probability," Edgar said. "Your choices influence outcomes. I am clarifying the outcome space." Krillin sat back. He thought of Bulma's lab, of Capsule Corp, of the way his world solved problems with ingenuity and fight. Here, ingenuity belonged to corporations, and fight belonged to branding. "What about Billy Butcher?" Krillin asked. "He thinks he can kill Homelander." Edgar's mouth formed the faintest hint of amusement. "Billy Butcher is a terrorist who has killed Vought employees and destroyed property. His strategy is vengeance disguised as justice." "He says Homelander is a monster," Krillin replied. "He is correct about the monster. He is wrong about the solution." Krillin's voice tightened. "If Butcher kills Homelander, you lose your brand." Edgar nodded. "We lose more than a brand. We lose deterrence. Markets panic. Governments respond. Every enhanced individual becomes a target. The world moves towards elimination programs. Chaos follows." Krillin held Edgar's gaze. "And you think your system prevents chaos?" Edgar's tone stayed calm. "It contains it." Krillin stood slowly. "I need time." Edgar did not look surprised. "Take another 48 hours. Krillin's eyes narrowed. "You changed the deadline." "I adjusted it. Your situation escalated last night. Homelander's obsession increases by the hour. Starlight's involvement adds complexity. Butcher's awareness adds risk. You will decide quickly whether you become a stabilizing factor or a catalyst." Krillin's fists clenched, then relaxed. "You talk like you're doing me a favor." Edgar rose and walked towards the window, looking down at Manhattan. "I am doing what I do, managing outcomes." Krillin stepped closer to the door. "And if I choose to act like a hero anyway?" Edgar looked back. "Then you must accept that heroism here carries a price. Good intentions without strategy create collateral damage." Krillin turned towards the exit, but Edgar spoke once more, almost conversational. "One more thing," Edgar said. "Homelander will confront you again. Not for the public, not for cameras. He will do it because he needs to prove something to himself. If that happens, your—"
Krillin spent the next day walking without direction, letting the city show him what Vought's spreadsheets could not. He left Vought Tower and did not go back to the apartment right away. He moved through crowds that barely looked up. The billboards did the looking for them. Homelander's face watched from screens the size of buildings. The Seven smiled down from posters that promised safety like a product warranty. Krillin felt Vought's surveillance around him like invisible rain. The SUV did not stay close anymore, but he could sense the shift. Either they felt confident he would comply, or they had switched to methods he could not detect. He suspected both. He took the subway for the first time in this world. He sat among commuters who smelled like coffee and fatigue. They stared at their phones, scrolling through clips of him, reacting to his existence like it was entertainment. A man across from him watched Crater Man vs. Police with the sound off and laughed as if watching a prank. A woman beside him watched a clip of Homelander smiling at a hospital and wiped a tear as if he had saved her personally. Krillin stared at the floor and listened to the pulse of the city. Millions of lives moving, anxious, unaware of how close their safety sought to collapse. When he surfaced in Queens, the air changed. The buildings were lower, the streets felt more lived in, less polished, more real. He walked past bodegas in small parks, past kids yelling on sidewalks, past a basketball court where a game was underway. He paused on a bench and watched. Some of the kids wore homemade capes. One had a red cape tied with string and called himself Homelander, shouting lines he had learned from commercials. Another kid wore sneakers with a lightning bolt drawn on the side, pretending to be A-Train. They laughed and pushed each other and played at being gods because no one had told them gods were cruel. Krillin felt something tighten in his chest. A woman sat down beside him, older, black, carrying grocery bags and an expression that suggested she had learned how to survive disappointment without showing it. She did not ask permission. She did not smile. She looked at the kids, then at Krillin.
"You're the Crater Man," she said, voice flat. "My grandson thinks you're going to join the Seven," she said, voice flat. "He thinks you'll fight alongside Homelander and make everything safe." Krillin looked at her. "I'm not joining." She nodded once, as if she had expected that. "Good. We don't need more of them." Krillin's eyes narrowed slightly. "You don't like them." The woman let out a short laugh without humor. "Like, dislike, doesn't matter. They exist. They break things. We clean up." She shifted one of the grocery bags on her lap and stared at the court. "My brother died in a soup fight 3 years ago. Stormfront and some villain throwing cars around like toys. Marcus was just trying to get home from work. They called it collateral damage." Krillin's fists clenched lightly. "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't bring him back," she replied. "Vought gave us $50,000 and a non-disclosure agreement, standard settlement. If we took the money, we agreed not to talk. If we didn't take it, we got nothing and still had to bury him." Krillin swallowed. "That's evil." She looked at him, eyes tired and direct. "It's business." Krillin heard Edgar's voice again. Outcomes, variables, continuity. The woman stood, gathering her bags. "You seem different," she said. "Got something real about you. But different doesn't matter if you play their game." Krillin stood as well. "What if I don't?" She held his gaze. "Then they destroy you, or you destroy them and become one of them. Either way, people like Marcus keep dying. That's how it works here." She walked away. The kids kept playing. The homemade cape fluttered. The belief stayed intact because belief was easier than truth. Krillin watched them for another minute, then turned and began walking again, mind heavy. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. "Hello?" "Krillin." Butcher's voice came through tight and urgent. "Need you in Brooklyn, Red Hook, Warehouse District, now." Krillin's stomach tightened. "What happened?" "Homelander's inside with a witness," Butcher said. "Woman who saw him kill 3 people during that apartment fire last month, the one Vought sold as heroic rescue. She was under protection, our protection. Vought found her. Homelander's doing cleanup personally." Krillin stopped walking. The street noise blurred. "He's going to kill her." "Yes," Butcher replied. "And we can prove it. We've got cameras. If we catch him doing it, Vought can't spin it away. Not fully, not when the footage spreads." Krillin's jaw tightened. "You want me to intervene?" "You're strong enough, fast enough. You stop him, save her, and the world sees what he is. They see it clear." Krillin's mind flashed to Edgar's calm warning about Aftermath, a psychopath with godlike abilities and a shattered ego. "If I stop him on camera," Krillin said, voice low, "that will push him." Butcher's tone stayed hard. "He's already killing people, quietly, with Vought cleaning the blood off the floor. You either let him kill one more and keep your hands clean, or you do what heroes do and accept consequences." Krillin closed his eyes for a beat. He thought of Master Roshi's teachings, the core rule beneath every technique. Strength existed to protect those who could not protect themselves. That rule didn't change because the world was ugly. "Send the address," Krillin said. Butcher did not sound surprised. "Already did. Check your messages." Krillin looked at the phone. A pinned location. Red Hook, an old warehouse block near the water. He moved into an alley, out of camera sight, and lifted off, flying low and fast, keeping his key tight. The city slid beneath him. In minutes he reached the warehouse district, a stretch of rusted metal and broken windows, the kind of place where people disappeared and nobody asked questions. Butcher waited in the shadow of a loading dock with 2 others, a young man with nervous eyes holding a small camera rig, another man rougher, carrying equipment and scanning the area with restless focus. "Oi," Butcher snapped as Krillin landed. "Good, you're quick." The young man stared at Krillin as if seeing flight in person broke his brain. He just flew. "Focus," Butcher barked. He pointed at the warehouse. "He's inside with her." Krillin extended his senses. He felt it immediately. Homelander's signature, close, heavy, roiling with agitation. Beside it, a smaller human presence, terrified, heart racing, the smell of fear even from here.
Krillin's voice tightened. How did you get cameras in? The other man, the one with equipment, spoke with a strange accent. Frenchie, he said, quickly, tapping his gear. We have angles, windows, 2 cameras, 1 inside feed. If he does it, we capture it. Butcher stepped closer to Krillin. Plan's simple. You go in first. You stop him. We film. We get her out. Krillin looked at the warehouse. If he sees cameras, he kills everyone. He won't see them, Butcher replied. Not if you keep him busy. Krillin looked at Butcher's face. You're counting on chaos. Butcher's grin appeared, sharp and hungry. I'm counting on truth, the kind Vought can't scrub. Krillin's mind returned to the woman in Queens, to the words about systems and costs, to the idea that fighting might turn him into what he hated. He forced that aside. There was a frightened human inside, a life he could save right now. He nodded once. Get ready to move the moment I create an opening. Butcher's expression stayed predatory. That's the spirit. Krillin walked towards the warehouse doors. The metal was dented. The lock was cut clean. Inside, darkness and echo. He stepped in. The air smelled like rust and old oil, and something sharper. Fear. Homelander's voice carried through the cavernous space, warm and terrible in its calm. Please, a woman begged. I have kids. I won't say anything, I swear. Krillin moved forward silently, senses locked on the center. Homelander replied, almost gently, I know you won't. A pause, then words that froze Krillin's blood. Because dead people make terrible witnesses. Krillin's body moved before his mind finished deciding. He surged toward the sound, silent and fast, and as the central floor came into view, he saw her tied to a chair, eyes wide, and Homelander standing over her with that bright, empty smile. Homelander turned his head. His smile widened.
The warehouse's central space opened like a throat. Rusty beams arched overhead. Broken skylights let thin strips of dawnlight fall across concrete. Dust hung in the air, disturbed by the slow movement of a cape that should not have belonged in a place like this. Homelander stood over the woman tied to a chair. Posture relaxed, smile perfect. He looked at Krillin like a child looked at a toy he had not decided whether to break. Behind Homelander, the woman's face was wet with tears and terror. Her mouth trembled. Her eyes begged Krillin without words. Krillin stepped forward and placed himself between her and Homelander, angled so he could still see her with peripheral vision. Step away from her, Krillin said. Homelander laughed softly. Oh, come on, don't be rude. I'm in the middle of something. Krillin's voice stayed calm, but the air around him tightened with contained energy. I'm not asking. Homelander's smile widened. That's cute, too. You're really committed to the whole hero thing. He took a half step to the side, repositioning himself to keep the woman blocked from Krillin's direct line of vision. He knew what he was doing. He wanted control of the hostage. He wanted leverage. So you see, Homelander continued, voice conversational, this woman thinks she saw me do something naughty, claims I killed 3 people during that apartment fire. The woman shook her head violently, gagged, muffled sobbing. Homelander shrugged. It's misinformation, obviously, terrorist propaganda, the usual. But the problem is, she believes it, and beliefs spread. Krillin's eyes narrowed. So you're going to kill her. Homelander's eyes flickered red faintly, like irritation lighting behind glass. I'm going to protect the public from dangerous lies. Krillin's jaw tightened. You're going to protect your ego. Homelander's smile sharpened. And you're going to learn when to shut up. Krillin did not move. He kept his voice level. Last chance. Walk away. Homelander sighed theatrically, as if bored by the script. I've been dying to see what you can do. His eyes flared red. Heat vision fired. Krillin moved. Not forward, not back. Sideways and into the beam's path with the smallest shift of his shoulders, hand rising as if couching a ball. The red beam struck his palm. It did not burn. It did not push him. It splashed across his skin like light hitting stone, scattering in a harmless flare against the warehouse wall. Homelander's smile vanished faster than it looked like someone had erased it. "What?" he whispered. Krillin's hand closed around the beam's origin point. He closed the distance in one motion and grabbed Homelander's wrist. The grip was not violent. It was absolute. Homelander's arms stopped as if caught in a vice. Krillin's other hand rose and caught Homelander by the throat, not choking, just holding him in place, forcing him to face the reality he could not deny. "Let her go," Krillin said quietly. Homelander's eyes widened. Not fear, recognition. The expression of a man who had been told he was invincible his entire life, meeting the first thing that proved the lie. Homelander roared, a raw animal sound, and slammed his free hand into Krillin's forearm. It did nothing. He tried to fly, lifting both of them, using his thrust to rip free. Krillin's grip did not shift. Homelander fired heat whizzing again, point blank into Krillin's face. Krillin did not blink. The beam traced across Krillin's cheek and dissipated like sunlight on steel. The cameras outside captured the moment. Krillin could sense their lenses through broken windows, could sense Butcher's crew holding their breath as the god of this world failed to burn a man's skin. Homelander's voice broke. "This isn't possible." Krillin's kept his tone calm. "You're strong, but you've never trained. You've never been forced to learn control." Homelander snarled and swung a punch that would have broken a building. Krillin caught it with one hand. The impact created a shockwave. Broken glass rained from skylights. Dust shook loose from beams. The warehouse groaned. Homelander swung again and again, frantic now. Each strike was blocked, redirected, made meaningless by technique and timing. The strength was real, but it was undisciplined, like a child swinging a hammer. Krillin shifted his stance and used Homelander's momentum. A simple judo throw. Homelander slammed into the concrete, cracking it with a sound like a car crash. He bounced once, stunned by the unfamiliar sensation of being handled. Krillin stepped forward and placed his foot on Homelander's chest, pinning him. The pressure was firm but controlled, a statement of dominance that did not require cruelty. "You're just power without purpose," Krillin said, voice steady. "That's not heroism. That's violence wearing a costume." Homelander thrashed and screamed, heat vision carving into ceiling supports. Steel melted. The building shuddered. Krillin glanced back at the hostage. He moved. In a blur, he lifted the chair and the woman as if she weighed nothing. He carried her towards the entrance where Butcher and the others waited. They rushed in, cutting restraints, dragging her out. "Get her out," Krillin said, not looking away from the doorway for long. "Now." Butcher's eyes gleamed with something like triumph. Frenchie's hands shook as he kept filming. Hughie looked pale, but he kept the camera steady. Krillin turned back. Homelander had risen from the cracked concrete, cape torn, costume scorched. Blood trickled from his nose, thin and bright. The first blood he likely ever shown in public. He stared at Krillin like the world had betrayed him. "You can't be stronger than me," Homelander whispered. Krillin's voice softened, not mocking, not cruel. "You were lied to. You were told power made you special. It doesn't. It makes you responsible." Homelander screamed and launched forward, abandoning any pretense of control. He swung wildly, fast, furious. Krillin dodged, blocked, redirected. He struck once, precise, into Homelander's solar plexus. The hit folded Homelander in half and sent him crashing through a support column. The warehouse groaned louder. The ceiling began to sag. Krillin moved fast, not chasing victory, chasing safety. He flew upward, bracing a beam with one hand, pushing it back into place long enough to prevent collapse over the exit. He scanned for any other civilians. None. Only Homelander. Homelander rose again, eyes wide with rage and terror. "I'll kill you," he said, voice shaking. "I'll kill everyone you care about. I'll burn this whole city down before I let some nobody make me look weak." Krillin's jaw tightened. He could end the fight now. A clean strike, a knockout, a restraint. He could drag Homelander into the ocean and hold him until he calmed down. He could also kill him. And in that moment, he understood what Edgar meant. The physical fight was not the hardest part. The aftermath was. Krillin stepped forward and held his hands open, palms visible, posture controlled. "You don't want to do that." Homelander's laugh cracked. "Yes, I do. You want to feel powerful again, but killing people won't fix what you're feeling. It just proves you're weak inside." Homelander's eyes flared red. Krillin moved before the beam fired, not to block it, but to redirect. He grabbed Homelander's head and turned it upward. The heat vision carved through the ceiling, slicing beams and sending molten fragments down. The roof gave a final groan. Krillin stopped thinking about fighting. He grabbed Homelander by the cape, lifted him, and launched them both out through a collapsing wall. They burst into open air as concrete and steel crashed behind them. They hit the ground outside. Krillin landed clean. Homelander stumbled, disoriented, cape shredded. Butcher's crew stood nearby with the freed witness, huddled behind a van, cameras still rolling. Their faces were lit by terror and exhilaration. They had what they wanted, proof. Homelander looked at the cameras. He realized. His eyes widened further, not with fear, but with a kind of offended disbelief that anyone would dare document him without permission. The rage sharpened. He lifted off, hovering over the rubble and the people, blood still on his lip, eyes glowing. "This isn't over," Homelander said, voice shaking. "I'll come for you, for all of you. I'll prove I'm still the god you need." Then he shot upward and vanished with a sonic crack, leaving dust and silence behind. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. Then Butcher started laughing. It was sharp and triumphant and dangerous. "We got him," Butcher said, grabbing Frenchie's camera. "We got every second. Homelander threatening a witness, Homelander bleeding, Homelander getting humbled. This is it." Hughie's voice trembled. "This is going to change everything." Krillin watched the sky where Homelander disappeared. He did not feel triumph. He felt the fuse burning. He turned towards Butcher. "You knew this would push him." Butcher's grin did not fade. "Of course it will. That's the point. You break the myth, you break the leash."
The video did not go viral the way Vought wanted things to go viral. It did not roll out through polished accounts with coordinated hashtags and approved talking points. It moved through channels that lived under the skin of the internet, encrypted groups, burner accounts, message boards that survived by mutating faster than corporate moderation could track. It spread because people wanted it to be real. Homelander bleeding. Homelander threatening a witness. Homelander pinned to the ground like a tantruming child. Within an hour, it had millions of views. Within 3, it had become unavoidable. By the time dawn turned to late morning, even major outlets that depended on Vought advertising were forced to acknowledge it, if only to deny it. Krillin watched the fallout from Butcher's safe house, a converted storage space that smelled like old wood, sweat, and gun oil. A row of monitors glowed against a wall. Hughie sat close, eyes wide, refreshing feeds with shaking hands. Frenchie checked camera footage obsessively, scrubbing frame by frame to confirm it could not be dismissed as AI. Mother's Milk paced. Butcher smoked and smiled like a man watching an enemy bleed. On one screen, Vought News Network ran a red banner. "Terrorist propaganda targets America's hero." Ashley Barrett appeared on camera in a suit that looked too expensive for how exhausted she looked. Her hairline looked stressed. She read a statement with the precision of someone reciting under a knife. "This footage appears to be doctored," she said.
We believe extremist groups are attempting to destabilize public trust in our heroes. Vought International is cooperating with authorities to investigate." Krillin muted the screen. He did not need to hear more. The performance was familiar now. Truth was treated as a hostile asset. Krillin's phone buzzed. Stan Edgar. Krillin answered. Edgar's voice came through calm, colder than usual. "Mr. Krillin, I assume you understand the magnitude of what you've done." Krillin's voice stayed steady. "I stopped a murder. You destabilized the most carefully maintained superhuman control structure on this planet. Vought stock is down 18%. Major advertisers are pulling contracts. Government agencies are moving contingency protocols into active readiness. Homelander has disappeared." Krillin's stomach tightened. "Where is he?" "Unknown," Edgar said. "He removed his tracker. He is not responding to communications. Our satellites cannot locate him consistently, which suggests either underground movement or speeds that defeat standard tracking." Krillin felt the weight in those words. "He's unstable." Edgar exhaled slowly. "Do you know what happens when a psychopath with godlike abilities experiences narcissistic collapse, when the identity that restrained him fractures?" Krillin held his jaw tight. "He gets more dangerous." "Yes," Edgar said, "and he will blame you. Not Vought, not his upbringing, not the people who built him. You." Krillin's voice sharpened. "He was going to kill an innocent woman." "This specific murder would have been unfortunate but manageable," Edgar replied, tone clinical. "Your intervention made it unmanageable." Krillin stared at the wall, forcing control. "You're saying I should have let her die." "You're saying you ignored the system," Edgar said, "and now the system reacts." Krillin's voice went low. "You call covering up murders a system?" Edgar did not deny it. "Yes." Then, for the first time, Edgar's voice showed a sliver of emotion, controlled anger. 6 minutes ago, Homelander incerated a Vought executive who attempted to approach him about damage control. He vaporized the man in his office. He laughed while doing it. Security footage exists. Krillin's stomach dropped. Huey looked up from the monitors as if sensing the shift. Krillin's voice tightened. "Who?" Edgar did not give a name. "It doesn't matter now. What matters is trajectory. Your public humiliation triggered ego death. Ego death triggers psychosis. Psychosis triggers spectacle." Krillin closed his eyes for a beat, then opened them. "I can stop him." Edgar's voice stayed cold. "Perhaps you can stop him physically. You cannot stop what follows. If you kill him, you become the murderer of America's beloved hero. If you restrain him, you become the proof that Vought is unnecessary. Both outcomes accelerate chaos." Krillin felt rage rise and forced it down. "And your solution is what? Lie harder?" "My solution is containment. You broke containment." The call ended. Krillin stared at the dark phone screen for a moment, then looked up at Butcher. "You knew this could happen," Krillin said. Butcher shrugged. "Of course he did. But he was already killing people. At least now the world sees it." "That won't help the people he kills in response," Krillin said. Butcher's eyes stayed hard. "Nothing helps those people. Not in real time. That's the point. This world eats bodies and calls it cost. Only difference now is Vought can't pretend it isn't happening." Huey's voice shook as he stared at the monitors. "Guys, look!" Breaking news. Homelander hovered over Times Square. Hundreds of feet up, visible from every angle. A red cape against neon screens. He did not move. He did not wave. He did not smile. He just hovered and stared down at the gathering crowd like a god deciding whether worship still mattered. Police lines formed. Sirens layered. People gathered anyway, because people always gathered when they thought something big might happen. Cameras angled upward. The city held its breath. Krillin extended his senses and felt Homelander's signature from miles away. It churned, unstable, wronger than before, like a reactor losing containment. "He's deciding," Krillin said quietly. Butcher's jaw tightened. Deciding what? Whether they're worth saving or worth punishing. Krillin's phone rang again. "Annie." He answered. "Annie," said Annie, voice strained, background full of sirens and panicked shouting. "I'm 3 blocks away. He's scaring people. He isn't attacking, but the way he's looking at them, I think he's going to do something terrible." Krillin looked at the screen showing Homelander hovering like an executioner. "I'm coming." "If you show up," Annie said, voice crocking, "it might trigger him." "It might," Krillin said, "but I can't sit here." He hung up and looked at Butcher. Butcher stepped forward. "You go. Talk him down if you can. If you can't—" Butcher did not finish the sentence. He did not have to. Krillin flew. Times Square at dusk should have been commerce and light. Instead, it was a potential killing ground. Police barriers pressed against crowds. Helicopters circled at a cautious distance. The neon screens kept advertising heroes while a hero hovered above them like a threat. Krillin landed on a rooftop near Annie. She stood with her fists half raised, electricity crackling at her fingertips, face pale. "He's been there 20 minutes, she said. "Black Noir tried to approach. Homelander almost killed him. The others are hiding." Krillin watched Homelander's posture. Stillness so controlled it looked like effort. The power beneath it pulsed in waves. The hero was not calm. He was holding himself together by force. Below, someone shouted upward, voice desperate. "Homelander, we still love you. You're still our hero." Homelander's head tilted down. His eyes glowed red. A thin line of heat vision cut into the pavement 10 feet from the nearest crowd. A warning shot, a message. People screamed and scattered, trapped between barriers in panic. Homelander's voice boomed, amplified by his own lungs. "You worship me when I save you, but the second you see me bleed, you question me." He laughed, sharp and broken. "You forget I'm a god among insects." Annie shouted, "Homelander, stop!" He turned his gaze towards her. The red intensified. "You betrayed me." Krillin floated upward, rising to Homelander's level, slow and controlled to avoid looking like an attack. Homelander's stare snapped to him with immediate hate. "There he is," Homelander said, voice shaking, "the one who did this." Krillin kept his voice calm. "You did this." Homelander's smile cracked into a snarl. "I was perfect. I was everything. Then you showed up and proved I can bleed. So now I have to remind them what happens when they question me." Krillin hovered closer, palms open. "You don't have to prove anything." "I do," Homelander hissed. "If I'm not the strongest, I'm nothing." Krillin's voice softened slightly. "You're terrified." Homelander's eyes flickered, anger fighting something else. "I don't get terrified." "You're scared people won't love you," Krillin said. "You're scared you'll be alone, so you threaten them." Homelander's jaw trembled. The heat vision flickered.